This is Deus, the most powerful demon king in history. He followed every tradition, obeyed every rule, and memorized every law like fate itself. But in the end, it was not the hero's strength that killed him. It was the very rules and traditions he trusted. He was mocked as he died without dignity. But the fate have other plans. He was surprised to see that he got sent back into the time where he can actually make the change and take revenge on the heroes that once mocked him. The Demon King stood frozen as reality crushed down upon him. The black flames he once revered as the absolute authority of his kingdom failed to even scorch the heroes standing before him. His scales, hardened through years of relentless cultivation, were pierced effortlessly by the hero's blade, which now lay buried deep within his heart. Nothing made sense anymore. He had done everything correctly. He graduated at the top of the Demon King Academy. He memorized the Demon King's standard word for word, followed every rule without deviation, and executed every doctrine to perfection. He built the tower exactly as instructed. He kidnapped royalty because tradition demanded it. He played the role of the mastermind flawlessly, scattering clues and deliberately nurturing heroes instead of killing them prematurely. The standard taught that heroes were livestock. The stronger they became, the richer the harvest would be. And yet, despite following that sacred logic to the letter, he lay bleeding in the dirt. The hero explained it plainly. Kidnapping royalty was never a crime, it was a signal. Towers were not fortresses, but invitations. Weak monsters were tools meant to train heroes. Delayed executions allowed them to grow. Even sparing their lives had only strengthened them further. His tower had never been a symbol of domination. It was a training ground, a farming zone. The heroes laughed openly, expressing their gratitude for raising their levels and providing excellent loot. Even the fallen heroes were dismissed as insignificant sacrifices made in pursuit of fame. The mockery cut deeper than death itself. Consumed by rage, the Demon King attempted to unleash his final power. Before it could even take shape, his head was severed cleanly from his body. As his consciousness faded, he sacrificed everything he had left to trigger one final explosion, swallowing the battlefield whole. Then came darkness. A voice called his name. Deus opened his eyes to thunderous applause. He found himself standing once again in the Demon King Academy, 15 years in the past, his graduation badge resting in his hand. Before him, the glowing laws of the Demon King standard materialized as they once had. This time, he understood everything. When asked to swear the oath, Deus refused. He openly denounced the standard, declaring it trash, a cruel joke designed to enslave demon kings and fatten heroes for slaughter. His words stunned the entire academy. In that instant, the greatest genius of the era became something far more dangerous. The madman of the century. Archduke Arcane Blair was the first to completely lose his composure. He slammed his hand down with such force it seemed as though he intended to split the table in half, roaring about immediate execution for what he deemed an unforgivable affront to their sacred standards. The sheer rage in his voice reverberated through the hall, making everyone feel as though the academy itself was caught in a violent earthquake. Then he paused. The Archduke reconsidered. That child had always been a shining star, possessing absurd discipline, overwhelming talent, and an academic record bordering on perfection. Executing him on the spot would be an irreversible waste. With a flicker of reluctant mercy, the Archduke issued a final ultimatum. Deus was to either retract his words and apologize to the entire demon realm, or be exiled to the hellhole known as the Arian region. The moment Arian was mentioned, the hall erupted into hushed gasps and frantic whispers. Arian was infamous. A graveyard for demon kings, a dimension where dozens perished every year without leaving a trace. No one could understand why someone who had committed such blasphemy was even being offered a second chance. In their eyes, no apology could ever atone for that level of sacrilege. The Archduke reminded them that Arian was the most hostile place in existence, a void that had devoured countless demon kings without even leaving behind an echo. Before the murmurs could settle, Deus responded with icy resolve. He demanded the assignment immediately, accepting it as though it were a reward rather than a punishment. The Archduke was left speechless. His composure crumbled entirely. The realization that Deus intended to use Arian to expose the standards as a farce shattered what little patience he had left. Orders thundered through the hall. Deus was to be transferred to Arian at once. Every privilege granted to top-tier demon kings was stripped away. No minions. No preparation time. Nothing. The portal flared open. The command was final. Deus was banned from returning until he conquered that hellhole. As Deus tumbled through the portal, he understood that this outcome was inevitable. Reality struck hard as he fell. Arian was the very place where the heroes who killed him in his previous life had risen to prominence. Back then, he had chosen Arian out of arrogance, believing the strongest should face the toughest challenges. That pride had led him straight into a trap. Those heroes had exploited his blind obedience to the standards and annihilated him. But this time was different. As he spread his wings and landed safely within the icy grip of the Urgus Mountains on the northern continent, he welcomed the biting cold. This life would not repeat the last. He resolved to twist the standards to his advantage instead of letting them devour him again. Meanwhile, back at the academy, chaos brewed on the morning of the graduation ceremony. Gordon Deerick prepared with meticulous care, polishing every detail with a precision that would impress a drill sergeant. In the demon world, the highest-ranking demon was assigned to serve the top demon king, a position that sparked envy hotter than dragon fire among the graduates ranked just below. Gordon viewed all demon kings as extraordinary, but Deus stood above them all, a once-in-a-millennium existence, a descendant of demonic dragons, a figure destined to carve his name into history. Graduating alongside him felt like a divine blessing. Gordon imagined conquering dimensions together, statues immortalizing them as king and loyal assistant. Then came the moment when Deus publicly rejected the sacred standards. That memory struck Gordon like a freight train. The image he had idolized shattered instantly. He could barely comprehend that the figure he revered had cast aside the sacred teachings as if they were worthless trash. Now, deep within the frozen expanse of the Urgus Mountains, Gordon trudged through relentless snow, weighed down by packs that felt impossibly heavy. Confusion and despair twisted his face into an expression of disbelief. He could not understand how everything had spiraled out of control so quickly. When Deus finally noticed him, his expression shifted to genuine astonishment. He had been told no demon would follow him. Yet there Gordon stood. Gordon's composure finally collapsed. He unleashed a torrent of questions, demanding to know why Deus had caused such catastrophic upheaval, why he dared to insult the sacred standards, and why they were both stranded in the most dangerous region on the continent. Deus responded with infuriating calm, brushing off the questions as though unaware of the chaos surrounding them. That indifference only fueled Gordon's frustration. He reminded Deus of the single moment that condemned them both to this frozen purgatory. Deus attempted to lighten the mood with humor, but Gordon had no tolerance for jokes while panic gnawed at his core. As Deus watched Gordon unravel, memories of the man he once knew resurfaced, the confident warrior who once charged eagerly toward Arian. Now fear had seized control. Revealing the truth about time reversal would only worsen the situation, so Deus chose silence. Eventually, Gordon managed to steady himself. He apologized stiffly, reaffirming his duty despite the doubts still lingering in his mind. Relying on the teachings he still believed in, he insisted that the first rule remained unchanged. They needed to build a tower, but not just any tower. The tower, according to Gordon, needed to be placed in a visible and accessible location, not hidden within a frozen wasteland crawling with monsters. The surrounding mountains were infested with ferocious beasts, making traversal nearly impossible for ordinary beings. He argued that choosing such a location blatantly violated every principle outlined in the Demon King's standards, and insisted they needed to retreat immediately. Desiree rejected the idea outright. Stubborn as an immovable pillar, he declared that the tower would rise exactly where they stood, here and now, and nowhere else. Without further debate, he produced the legendary tower seed and thrust it into the frozen earth. The seed required Demon King blood to awaken, and Gordon's panic surged instantly. He accused Deus of trampling over sacred traditions, but Deus responded with cold finality. He had never sworn allegiance to those standards in the first place. Gordon recoiled as though struck across the face. That rejection of doctrine hit him with crushing force. For demons, the standards were as fundamental as breathing itself. To deny them felt as unnatural as flying without wings, unless one had endured something truly hellish, like death itself. Deus sliced his palm open without hesitation and let his blood drip onto the seed. He asserted that Gordon needed to understand something clearly, that the standards were utterly worthless, especially within Arian. The seed absorbed the blood and erupted in a blinding red flare as a massive magic circle expanded outward. The tower began identifying its master, Deus of the Black Flame Demonic Dragon Clan. As the revelation unfolded, it shattered the foundations of everything Gordon believed. Deus explained that Arian swarmed with heroes because they had learned how to manipulate towers, weaponizing the Demon King's standards against demons themselves. That was the reason Demon Kings met their end in this cursed land time and time again. When the tower fully manifested, rising from the snow like a dark and brooding monument, Gordon stared in disbelief. Deus merely remarked that the standards deserved to be renamed, given that they now served humans far better than demons ever had. The interior of the tower was nothing but desolation. Upon entering the first floor, cold stone and suffocating silence greeted them. Gordon inspected the empty space with growing unease. A proper tower should have been overflowing with chambers, traps, and monsters, yet this one felt abandoned, stripped of every luxury a demon king was supposed to possess. Each level above proved just as barren. By the time they reached the fifth floor, the so-called king's chamber was as empty as the rest. Gordon reluctantly accepted that the tower's structure was beyond saving, but insisted that the next rule of the standards still needed to be followed. The second requirement demanded the kidnapping of a prince or princess, preferably someone close to the throne, to siphon the strongest emotional energy. Gordon asked for permission to offer his suggestion, and Deus granted it with a nod. Unfurling a map, Gordon pointed toward the kingdom of Corson, the closest realm to the Urgus Mountains. In his assessment, abducting the highest-ranking princess there would send waves of fear and despair through the kingdom, fueling their growth immensely. Deus cut him off before he could continue. He agreed with the kidnapping itself, but revealed that he had already chosen his target. Gordon's excitement spiked at the prospect of accompanying the mission until Deus ordered him to remain behind and guard the tower. Gordon took this as reassurance, convincing himself that his king had finally returned to reason and that the earlier erratic behavior was merely the stress of graduation. That fragile optimism shattered instantly when he learned the chosen target. Instead of Corson's royal princess, Deus had selected Hilderin, the kingdom farthest from the tower. And rather than a high-ranking royal, his target was the 13th princess, a girl with almost no influence and barely any presence at court. With unwavering resolve, Deus launched himself southward, crossing vast lands until he reached a distant castle. He slipped through a window and entered the princess's private chamber without hesitation. The mission felt disturbingly familiar. Yet this time, he moved with a purpose that defied every sacred rule of the demon world. Back at the tower, Gordon's heart pounded as panic set in. His king had chosen the least strategic option possible, the complete opposite of everything the standards demanded. Inside the chamber, the princess stared at Deus in stunned confusion, unsure of who or what had just shattered her quiet night. Deus wasted no time, declaring his identity and intent with unwavering confidence. Instead of terror, she responded with a soft, almost amused laugh. The reaction caught Deus completely off guard. Rather than shrinking back, the princess stood tall, meeting his gaze as though appraising him. Her audacity was baffling. He questioned whether she genuinely understood the danger or simply thought demon kings were some kind of joke. Even so, he bolstered his confidence, certain of his own presence. What he failed to anticipate was her calm acceptance, as though being kidnapped was little more than an inconvenience. That composure sent an inexplicable chill down his spine. He questioned her motives sharply, but she merely shrugged, explaining that she had long suspected something absurd like this might happen to a princess. He warned her not to attempt anything clever, insisting he would not tolerate deception, especially while feeling as though he stood on a fragile bridge above molten lava. She countered calmly, pointing out that she could not have plotted anything when she had no way of knowing he would appear that night. Her reasoning was sound, yet something about it unsettled him. Before he could dwell on it further, she extended her hand and beckoned him to leave. Deus took her hand, and together they soared back toward the tower hidden deep within the Urus Mountains. The moment they landed, Gordon rushed forward, tension radiating from every movement. Deus instructed him to place the princess on the 4th floor rather than throwing her into the dungeon, explaining that her lack of resistance warranted a small measure of leniency. Gordon complied, then requested to discuss an urgent matter. Meanwhile, the princess sat alone on the bare stone floor of the 4th level, quietly remarking to herself that she had truly been kidnapped. Her eyes wandered across the empty chamber, no bedding, no servants, no comforts of any kind. Yet despite everything, a small smile formed on her lips as she concluded that perhaps this situation was not entirely unbearable. At the same time, Gordon presented Deus with an ornate invitation from the Tower of Monsters. It announced a welcome celebration for the newly crowned Demon King. Deus dismissed it as a hollow display of intimidation, a posturing show of power. Under normal circumstances, demon kings would never cooperate, but Arian's grim reality had forced uneasy alliances. Still, he decided to attend. The stakes had grown too significant to ignore. The Tower of Monsters loomed from within a dense forest. There, Deus came face to face with Draxon, the demon king who had ruled the region for 70 long years. Draxon's first reaction was steeped in contempt. He assessed Deus as though he were nothing more than dust beneath his feet, making his disdain for the newcomer's disregard for tradition unmistakably clear. Deus responded with unbothered defiance, urging him to abandon theatrics and state his purpose. The reason soon surfaced. Draxon revealed that Archduke Arcane had ordered him to monitor Deus closely. Deus retaliated with an unfiltered insult, mocking how even Exile to Arian had failed to extinguish the Archduke's arrogance. The remark ignited Draxon's fury. He attempted to assert dominance by issuing a humiliating command, but Deus did not yield. Instead, he questioned whether Draxon truly understood why he was there. Draxon insisted that Deus had violated sacred traditions. Deus cut him off, pointing out that those same traditions forbade demon kings from killing one another, before slamming his heel down and shattering the floor with a single thunderous strike. The sheer force of the display left Draxon frozen in stunned silence. Only then did Draxon realize far too late that he had gravely misjudged his guest. Scrambling to salvage what had already become a complete disaster, he dragged up the Archduke's orders once more, orders tangled in the chaotic affair of a kidnapped princess and a report that wasn't even due for another month. Deus responded casually, mentioning that he had already taken a princess for himself, and with a wicked grin added that she was exactly his type. Draxon was left utterly baffled as Deus strutted out of the tower as if he owned the damn place. Back in his own tower, Gordon was practically bouncing off the walls, showering Deus with praise for his overwhelming, unfiltered display of power. Deus waved it off like it was nothing, firmly convinced that Draxon wouldn't dare escalate things now. Still, he warned Gordon to stay alert. He instructed him to check on the princess and see how she might be turned into a valuable asset. Despite his outward confidence, unease churned deep inside him. He couldn't stop worrying about the other demon kings. If they decided to unite, they could become an overwhelming threat. Mocking tradition carried consequences far heavier than he had anticipated. Even so, he knew he would make the same choice 1,000 times over. Facing death was preferable to bowing before those he despised. He had plans to rebuild everything from the ground up. In his mind, expending a measly amount of energy to kidnap a low-ranking princess had been an absolute steal. That confidence shattered the moment he opened his system panel and saw the number staring back at him, over 13,000 points. the shock hit him instantly. Before he could process it, a video message arrived from the Tower of Monsters. Draxon appeared on the screen, suddenly cheerful and overly cordial, congratulating him and offering a gift. He claimed admiration for Darius's accomplishments and hinted that mocking tradition might have served some hidden purpose. The abrupt shift in tone was deeply unsettling. Before Darius could unravel the meaning behind that twisted message, Gordon burst into the room, pale as a ghost and shaking uncontrollably. He reported that something was seriously wrong on the 4th floor. Darius rushed over and stopped dead in his tracks. The spare room had transformed into a lush, living garden. Flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, butterflies drifted lazily through the air, and an entire ecosystem flourished inside the tower. Elemental spirits swirled around the princess, who stood at the center like a sovereign of nature itself. Only a master of all 4 elements could create something so extraordinary, and there was only one spirit elementalist of that caliber on the entire continent. In that instant, Darius realized the truth. She was not the 13th princess. She confirmed his suspicion with a sly smile, revealing that her true name was Ernan, the first princess of the kingdom, a kingdom now poised to erupt in fury. Within hours, news of her kidnapping spread through the royal palace like wildfire. The king erupted in rage, swearing vengeance against the demon king who had dared touch his precious daughter. He rallied the mightiest heroes and ordered the full mobilization of the army to ensure her triumphant return. The situation had spiraled into absolute chaos. The princess appeared once more, her presence shimmering with regal authority, reminding Darius of the question she had posed earlier, whether he could truly handle her. She made it unmistakably clear that this was the core issue. Ever the keen observer, Darius made it known that her enchanting appearance fooled him not in the slightest. He had heard tales of a genius elemental witch whose mana overflowed like a raging volcano. Power of that magnitude was impossible to ignore. What truly intrigued him was how she had managed to suppress such an overwhelming presence so completely. With dramatic flair, Ernan revealed a magnificent ring on her finger, explaining that it was a royal heirloom capable of concealing her magical energy. She then fixed Darius with a piercing gaze, questioning whether he intended to send her back now that he knew the truth. Darius scoffed at the idea. Returning a princess would turn him into the kingdom's greatest joke, shatter his fearsome reputation, and destroy his ability to harvest demonic energy from the terror he inspired. Letting her go was never an option. At that precise moment, the system detected an explosive surge of fury directed squarely at him. His demonic energy skyrocketed to 19,000 points. The realization hit him immediately. The kingdom had discovered her disappearance and identified him as the culprit. Whether she was the first princess or the 13th made no difference. To them, she was his hostage. Back at the royal palace, the king roared orders to annihilate the demon king and rescue his daughter. His advisors, however, remained confused, still uncertain of the true perpetrator. Reconnaissance units pleaded for patience, but his fury erupted uncontrollably. He berated them for their incompetence while his daughter remained trapped in an unknown hell. A seasoned advisor recalled a recent scandal in a neighboring realm where a prince had been kidnapped by the demon king of lust, an incident that united the world and ended with the demon king's public execution at the hands of heroes. The idea that another demon king would repeat such a mistake sent chills through the chamber. The king concluded with grim certainty that a new demon king had emerged. At that moment, a soldier burst into the hall, reporting the detection of teleportation magic moving north toward the Urgis Mountains. Shock rippled through the room. Those mountains lay far to the north while the kingdom rested in the far south. The implications were deeply troubling. Within the tower, Gordon voiced concern over the impending arrival of the kingdom's forces. Darius, however, remained calm and confident. He knew their army would never reach him. The journey crossed multiple hostile nations, natural barriers, and political minefields. None of those kingdoms would welcome Hilduran's soldiers. That left only one option: hiring a heroes guild. The king reluctantly issued the order, but fear swept through the guild headquarters the moment the Urgis Mountains were mentioned. The heroes refused outright, treating the request like being asked to fix live electrical wiring. To them, it was suicide. Just as Darius had predicted, mercenaries driven by profit and self-preservation would never march towards certain death. That was precisely why he had chosen that location. Gordon found himself increasingly impressed by Darius's strategic brilliance and uncanny understanding of the world of Arian. It felt as though his master had lived there before, despite that being impossible. Back at the palace, the king erupted once more upon learning that no heroes had accepted the mission. An advisor explained that heroes in Arian treated battles like job listings. If the risk was too high or the pay too low, they simply ignored it. Inside the tower, Darius browsed the system store. Skeletal soldiers cost 10,000 points each, and weakening dimensional interference required even more. Building a proper army would demand time he didn't have. Sitting heavily on his throne, he admitted that his current demonic energy was insufficient to face a united hero force. Memories of his past life's fear crept back in. To overcome this, he ordered Gordon to contact Draxon. He intended to sell demonic energy in exchange for human currency. Gordon reacted in horror, knowing demonic energy was essential for breaking racial limits and unlocking powerful features. But Darius was confident Draxon would pay dearly. Disguised as a mercenary, Darius arrived alone at the fortress city of Holton. The guards mocked the idea of a lone mercenary heading toward the Urgis Mountains until he tossed them a gold coin. Their attitude shifted instantly and they allowed him entry. Inside, he realized he needed a guide. That led him to the Scarlet Hawk Mercenary Guild where members lounged and drank. They discussed rumors of a new demon king, dismissing them as nonsense meant to extort gold from the kingdom. When Dedius appeared behind their leader, panic erupted. They demanded to know who he was. Dedius merely smiled, noting how well informed they were and deciding they would serve as suitable guides. When they attacked instead, a brutal fight broke out. Dias moved with ruthless precision. One mercenary attempted a sneak attack from behind, only for Dias to block it as effortlessly as swatting away a mosquito. When another swung a massive hammer toward him, Dias caught it midair, stunning the attacker in the same way martial arts movie characters freeze when their strongest punch is stopped barehanded. Within moments, crossbows were aimed at him from every direction. Even then, he continued fighting without hesitation. He seized one large mercenary and hurled him into the others, scattering them like bowling pins crashing across the floor. The leader watched in absolute terror, no longer seeing a man, but a monster torn straight from a dark fantasy series. Outside the building, several mercenaries muttered in despair, questioning why the battle still hadn't ended and why exhaustion never seemed to touch their opponent. It felt as though they were trapped in a boss fight against an enemy who simply refused to obey stamina rules. When the rest finally collapsed, Dias approached the trembling leader, his eyes faintly glowing in the shadows. He assured the man that he would survive on the condition that he answered truthfully. Faced with a presence that felt like a final boss looming over him, the leader agreed instantly, begging for mercy without hesitation. Dias demanded the location of the slave market. Shaking uncontrollably, the leader guided him to a massive structure sealed behind a heavy iron gate. Dias quickly noticed that the market dealt exclusively in human slaves. The leader hesitated, uncertain whether this displeased him. Dias asked if there was anything rarer and casually tossed him a heavy bag of gold. Fear vanished in an instant, replaced entirely by greed. The leader's demeanor shifted immediately, like a shopkeeper adjusting his attitude for a wealthy customer, and he led Dias toward a hidden section of the market. As they walked, Dias couldn't help but notice how quickly the man recovered after witnessing his comrades' deaths. In that instant, he realized humans and demons were not so different. One chased money, the other chased energy. They descended into underground dungeons where the leader finally revealed what Dias had come for. Gordon's earlier question now made sense. Dias had come to buy slaves, not humans but members of other races captured by mankind. His goal was to acquire an elf known for unwavering loyalty, someone capable of acting as a spy to destabilize the heroes. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom, Helen Cardinal arrived. The king welcomed him with visible relief, and Helen accepted the mission without hesitation, vowing to rescue the princess and take the demon king's head with the confidence of a shonen hero beginning a new arc. Back at the slave market, the traitorous leader asked what kind of slave Dias desired. Dias pointed toward a captured elf and calmly stated that the mercenary accompanying him would handle the payment. The mercenary exploded in shock, protesting like someone watching a friend order the most expensive dish on the menu using their wallet. One cold glance from Dias silenced him instantly, forcing his agreement into stiff, terrified compliance. Dias then ordered his companions to wait outside, explaining that he needed to inspect something alone. The merchant issued a warning, cautioning that the elf could be dangerous, the same way shopkeepers warned customers not to handle fragile merchandise. Dias dismissed the concern, assuring him he would cover any losses if something went wrong. He examined the bound elf carefully, observing how humans had reduced a once proud race to chained commodities. A spark of anger stirred within the elf as he sensed the demonic aura surrounding Dias, unable to understand why such a being would take interest in him. Dias offered him the chance to seek vengeance against mankind. The idea tempted the elf, but he made it clear that demons were no more trustworthy than humans. Dias claimed he was different and proposed a contract, 50 years of loyalty in exchange for freedom and protection. He reminded the elf that for a long-lived race, 50 years was little more than a brief interlude between story arcs in an ancient fantasy saga. The elf rejected the offer, stating that demons sought to destroy the world tree, the very foundation of elven belief. Trust, therefore, was impossible. Dias did not argue. He understood the fear, knowing the situation felt as unnatural as a villain calling a timeout in the middle of a battle. Instead, he swore an oath under the sacred code of demons, pledging never to harm the world tree and to honor his promise as a demon. The weight of this oath matched the sanctity the world tree held for the elves. In return, he requested that the elf, Granada of the Maple tribe, swear 50 years of loyalty upon the world tree itself. Disturbed by the demon's strange sincerity, Granada agreed on one condition. He demanded to meet the demon king who had supposedly issued such an oath. Dias revealed that he himself was the demon king. Granada mocked the claim instantly, stating that no demon king would personally attend a slave market. He added that demon kings weakened when far from their towers. With smug confidence, he offered a wager. He would swear 100 years of service instead of 50 if Dias could prove his identity. It was the kind of reckless bet characters made moments before realizing how badly they had misjudged everything. In the next instant, reality shifted. Granada found himself standing on the 5th floor of Dias's tower. Dias reminded him of the promised 100 years. The realization struck Granada like a plot twist he never saw coming. Though the truth finally sank in, it didn't stop him from complaining. He immediately began criticizing the tower like a gamer reviewing a broken survival base, remarking on its emptiness, the useless lower floors and the fourth floor being overgrown and unguarded. He scoffed at the idea that such a place could withstand a hero's assault, claiming Dais wouldn't last even a year. Declaring he had no intention of serving in such a ruin, he sealed his mistake. In response, Dais released a crushing wave of demonic pressure. The force slammed into Granada like a heavyweight finisher in a fighting anime, pinning him to the ground without a single blow. Terror flooded his mind as the contract he had agreed to resurfaced. Only then did the truth fully dawn on him. The tower stood in a region infested with catastrophic-level monsters, yet none dared approach. It was like living beside a volcano that remained dormant only because something even more terrifying resided at its core. Accepting reality, Granada bowed and swore 100 years of loyalty in the name of the Great World Tree. Deep down, he expected his first assignment to be something grim, perhaps even a chance to exact vengeance on humanity. Instead, Dais instructed him to cook. Granada froze, utterly baffled. It felt like preparing for a climactic boss battle only to be handed a grocery list. Confusion clouded his thoughts as he chopped vegetables in the kitchen. Soon after, Princess Arian joined him, cheerfully offering assistance like a friend suddenly joining a co-op game mid-session. The absurdity continued to pile up. Before long, everyone gathered in the fifth-floor dining hall, seated before a lavish feast that looked nothing like the lair of a demon king. Proceeding cautiously, Granada inquired about the girl, only to learn she was Princess Ernan, the kingdom's first princess. Shock struck him once again. He had assumed she was merely a kidnapped noble. He questioned how such an empty tower could possibly withstand the hero destined to arrive. Dais offered no explanation, simply instructing him to sit and eat. He then revealed the true reason for purchasing Granada, the elf's extraordinary cooking skills. The princess continued smiling as Granada sat there, feeling as though he had wandered into the wrong story entirely. After the meal, Granada assumed his role would be guarding the fourth floor against approaching heroes. Dais rejected the idea immediately, explaining that if enemies reached that level, everything was already lost. It would mean they had crossed the Urgist Mountains. Only then did Dais reveal his real plan. Granada would infiltrate human society as a spy to sow chaos and disorder. Before that, however, Dais needed to test his abilities. Sensing an opportunity to gain leverage, Granada agreed. Dais laid out the rules. He would fight using only one hand and without drawing upon demonic power. If Granada emerged victorious, 50 years would be removed from his contract. Hearing this, Granada accepted with the resolve of a character granted a rare power-up quest. Their battle began immediately. Movements sharp and deliberate. Darius quickly observed that Granada's technique remained refined and precise, untouched by years of enslavement. He even suspected that prolonged exposure to the tower's fourth floor had naturally strengthened the elf's body and magic. Granada unleashed powerful spells, revealing strength far beyond that of ordinary elves. His magic surged with confidence as he warned Darius not to underestimate him. Magically summoned roots erupted from the ground, wrapping tightly around Darius's leg. For a brief moment, Granada believed victory was finally within reach. Then a crushing presence descended, an overwhelming pressure slammed into Granada, a brutal reminder of the being standing before him. His body froze, instincts screaming danger. Darius maintained his promise to restrain his strength, yet the pressure alone made it difficult for Granada to breathe. Before he could respond, the fight ended in an instant. A single decisive strike from Darius dropped him to the ground, ending the battle and proving that the gap between them was far greater than Granada had ever imagined. From there, the story shifted to the city of Horton Walk, home to the Red Hawk mercenaries' headquarters. This time, the mercenaries welcomed Darius with warmth and respect, behaving like employees greeting a once strict boss who had returned with a rare smile. Darius informed them that he intended to hire their services for an entire year. Their captain accepted immediately, asking about payment. One mercenary muttered under his breath, clearly irritated at how eagerly their leader bowed to the same man who had flattened them earlier. In response, Darius placed a heavy sack of gold onto the table. The sound alone shifted the atmosphere. The mercenaries straightened instantly, enthusiasm igniting as they swore loyalty without hesitation. Their captain even considered, in private, replacing some members with a stronger team later on. Darius then informed them that the man beside him would be joining as a new member and would relay all future orders. The group hesitated, until Granada stepped forward. Seeing his swollen, bruised face erased all doubt. Sympathy replaced suspicion as they welcomed him like a long-lost companion, recognizing that he had suffered under Darius just as they had. Shared trauma bonded them faster than any introduction ever could. Watching them, Darius noted that despite their rough demeanor, these mercenaries were seasoned veterans and not easily replaced. His thoughts drifted to the only hero who had answered Hildurin's call, Hillen, the hero renowned for slaying the demon king of lust. Now in command of the mercenaries, Darius revealed their first mission: gather every fragment of information related to Hillen, who was currently serving the Hildurin kingdom. The mercenaries stood straighter, determination clear in their eyes. With their assignment set, Darius departed Horton Walk, heading back toward his tower while already planning the next stage of his strategy like a tactician, setting up the next episode's cliffhanger. After assigning Granada to oversee the investigation, Darius decided it was finally time to strengthen himself. All demonic energy points that could have been used to reinforce the tower or empower himself had already been spent. leaving only one remaining option. His thoughts turned to the soul flower, a rare mana crystal formed over years of absorbing untouched natural energy. Consuming one could grant immense power. He believed the Urgus Mountains were the ideal place to search. Fierce mana storms and dangerous monsters had kept humans away for centuries, preserving the land in its natural state. While soul flowers couldn't compare to pure demonic energy, they were far better than having nothing. When he shared his plan, Gordon warned that searching for one was like hunting a needle in a mountain-sized haystack, and that monsters would attack the moment they sensed weakness. Deus explained that monsters weren't the real issue. The true challenge was locating the flowers without advanced mana detection. Their discussion was interrupted by a soft knock. Princess Ernam peeked in, a small blue slime bouncing happily atop her head like a living accessory. Both Deus and Gordon flinched at the sight. With a shy smile, she admitted she had never expected to be allowed beyond the palace walls and was grateful she had come. Before she could continue, Deus lifted her up, instructed her to hold on and launched them into the sky. They shot upward at breathtaking speed. From above, Ernam gazed down in awe, seeing the world like a first-time traveler staring out an airplane window. The sunrise, the clouds, the open land, everything felt unreal. Her thoughts drifted back to life in the palace, where every day felt identical. Training magic, studying history, repeating routines without variation. She had never imagined anything different. Yet soaring above the Urgus Mountains made her feel as though she had stepped into someone else's adventure. Deus ignored her reverie and reminded her of the task at hand. She asked him to use her name, since they would be together often. He agreed but warned her not to forget her responsibility. Failure to locate the soul flowers would result in punishment. She immediately apologized and summoned her water and wind spirits to begin the search. Deus expected the process to take time, but he knew her method far surpassed wandering blindly. Suddenly, Ernam cried out, claiming she had found something. Deus descended rapidly and saw monsters clustered around a glowing flower. Massive creatures emerged from the shadows. Deus identified them as a demonic race that had strayed from the demon realm long ago. As their king, he ordered them to step aside and leave the flower untouched. Their hatred for humankind burned intensely, and they declared their intent to kill him instead. Deus released a cold laugh. Gordon had been right. Expecting reason for monsters was pointless. He incinerated them without hesitation. The creatures fought back with desperate ferocity, defending what they believed was theirs. Their screams blended with the roar of spreading flames. When one commanded the others to attack the weakest and pointed toward Ernam, they charged in a frenzy. Deus annihilated them with a single burst of fire. Ernam remained calm, recalling how even ogres could fall through coordination. Yet these monsters never even reached her. Deus unleashed a massive surge of demonic energy that erased everything around them. When the smoke cleared, only Deus remained standing. Ernam stared at him in open amazement, eyes shining with excitement. He remarked dryly that humans only understood power once they witnessed it firsthand. That was when she noticed a ruby-colored spiritual flower buried in the snow, radiating pure ice and water mana. He warned her not to grow greedy. If she found more, she would be rewarded. She searched until exhaustion claimed her, but found nothing else. Back at the tower, Darius reflected on her true identity as Hildurin's first princess. Saving her once had felt like a mistake, yet now she seemed far more useful than he had originally expected. Gordon soon arrived with news from Granada. Hillen and 32 heroes had already left the capital. However, rather than heading toward the Urgus Mountains, they were following the standard route, gathering allies, accepting village quests, and steadily leveling up. Gordon presented several strategies, urging Darius to examine them carefully. Darius casually tossed the proposals aside, leaving Gordon stunned. He made it clear that he had no intention of placing even a single monster or barrier in the hero's path. Weak challenges, in his view, only forged stronger heroes. He then instructed Gordon to send word to Granada and have the mercenaries accompany the heroes, allowing them to earn the heroes' trust. Gordon complained inwardly that his master never followed common sense and voiced his concern about how the tower could possibly be defended in its current condition. Darius reassured him that the tower would be reinforced, but when he mentioned doing so with the help of a dwarf, Gordon immediately protested. Housing a dwarf alongside a human and an elf, he argued, would turn them into a laughingstock. Darius ignored the complaint and explained that the true prize was not the dwarf himself, but the advanced magical weapons that only dwarves were capable of forging. His next move was both simple and ruthless. Heroes always expected weak monsters on the first floor of a demon king's tower. This time, they would instead be greeted by rows of cannons. Gordon immediately grasped the implications, realizing that such an ambush would be impossible for the heroes to anticipate. Shaking his head, he remarked that the plan shattered every established rule. Suddenly, he froze before shouting that another kidnapping had occurred. The view shifted to the underground dwarf city of Wolfner. There, Logger Friedrich, the greatest blacksmith among the dwarves, worked quietly at his forge, completely unaware that he had just become the demon king's next target. The scene lingered on Wolfner, the bustling city of dwarves, as Darius entered in disguise. He recalled having fought countless dwarves before his regression, yet this marked his first time setting foot in their city. Darius stepped into a shop known as the Midnight Inn. Upon arrival, he handed money to a man and explained that he had come to commission a weapon, though he did not know where to begin. He asked to be directed to the most outstanding blacksmith in the city. The man accepted the money and laughed, commenting that for a human, Darius certainly understood how to conduct business. Darius replied by remarking that he had heard dwarves loved money just as much as heroes did. The man smiled and explained that Darius should head deeper into the city. He described a massive hole that would be impossible to miss and instructed him to board the lift there. Once inside, his identification would be checked and he would be taken to the desired floor. The man further explained that this was a two-step security system designed to identify intruders. He then instructed Darius to go to the lowest floor in the deepest room where he would find the city's finest blacksmith, Lager Friedrich. Following those directions, Darius took the same route and eventually arrived at Lager's domain. As he observed the forge, Darius thought that the display of metallurgy made it seem as though the metal itself was dancing. He questioned whether Lager truly was the best blacksmith, then considered how much easier things would be if he simply abducted him quietly. Reaching out, Darius attempted to place a hand on Lager's shoulder. At that moment, Lager sensed his presence and forcefully raised his hammer. A powerful aura erupted, overwhelming Darius and hurling him backward under the sheer pressure. Darius realized that Lager had detected even the faint trace of demonic energy and wondered if this dwarf might be more formidable than expected. Lager charged at him, hammer raised. Darius caught the weapon mid-swing and declared that Lager was a hero. Lager loudly affirmed this, identifying himself as Lager Friedrich, the blacksmith who carried the power of heroes. He condemned Darius for daring to enter dwarven land as a demon. Darius responded with a smirk, stating that Lager would not leave the city alive and remarking that despite all the bravado, Lager was surprisingly weak. He then clarified that he was not merely a demon, but a demon king. With that declaration, Darius seized Lager by the throat, causing him to groan in pain. Hearing the commotion, several soldiers rushed over and called out to Lager, apologizing for interrupting his work and asking about the noise they had heard. Moments later, they realized Lager was gone. Shouting that there was an intruder, they ordered all exits sealed and demanded a full search of the facility. The scene shifted again, revealing Darius holding Lager high above the city. Darius warned him that making a single sound would result in instant death. Lager wondered why a demon king had come and assumed it must be for their princess. Darius dismissed the assumption, stating that the princess did not interest him. Lager insisted that this was a lie. Darius countered by mentioning rumors that dwarven blacksmiths dug underground escape passages for emergencies. Grinding his teeth as tears streamed down his face, Lager convinced himself that the demon king truly had come for the princess. He cursed his own fate, thinking that the only reason he had lived quietly until now was his fear of confronting demon kings. He lamented that this misfortune had fallen upon him. It was then revealed that Lager was in truth weak. Darius noted that coaxing information from him would not be easy and proposed an alternative. He would kidnap the princess instead and allow Lager to live, provided that Lager guided him. Lager reacted in shock, struggling to understand Darius's intentions. He imagined the consequences of a rumor spreading that a selfish hero had sold out the princess to save his own life. Such a story, he realized, would forever change how the other dwarves viewed him. Crying out in despair, he cursed Darius as a vile and evil creature, believing that everyone already knew he was weak and that such a rumor would easily be believed. Darius then presented him with a choice: either sell out the princess or walk away under his own power. Internally, Darius knew Lager would choose betrayal, as he clearly wished to avoid torture. He promised that if Lager cooperated, his safety would be guaranteed, swearing this vow upon the Demon King's standards. Lager recalled that those standards were treated as sacred among demon kings and believed that a vow made upon them could never be broken. Coming to a decision, Lager suddenly forced a dramatic smile and agreed to lead Darius through the underground passage. Darius commented on the expression, remarking that it made him feel sick. Back at Lager's workshop, his status was listed as absent while knights searched the area. At the same time, Princess Louise Weft of the Dwarven Kingdom stood nearby, dressed in a strange outfit. She cried as she wondered where Lager had gone while crafting her weapon. One knight explained that they believed he had been kidnapped. Louise angrily ordered him to be silent, insisting that Lager was a hero and that it made no sense for a hero to be abducted. The knight carefully explained that while Lager was a hero, he was also a blacksmith, which explained his lack of combat ability. Louise again demanded silence and ordered the knights to find the kidnapper and bring him before her at once. The knight acknowledged her command. She then issued a dark warning, stating that if they failed, she would personally rip off their heads. The knight once again acknowledged her authority. The scene shifted to the secret passage. Lager led Darius through a narrow tunnel, walking ahead while Darius followed behind. Darius was forced to stare at Lager's large backside the entire time, which steadily irritated him. He complained about how long he had to endure the sight. Trembling, Lager explained that it could not be helped due to the tunnel's tight space and urged him to be patient, saying they were almost there. Darius ordered him to move faster despite his large build. Eventually, Lager emerged from the tunnel and led Darius to a castle. He declared that his role was finished, explaining that he had fulfilled his part by revealing the underground passage and that Darius was now on his own. His voice shook as he announced his departure. Darius's expression darkened as he called out the absurdity of Lager's claim. Trembling, Lager reminded him of the vow made upon the Demon King's standards, insisting that his safety had been guaranteed. Darius responded with a smirk, dismissing the vow as worthless and stating that he did not care in the slightest. Lager broke down in tears, questioning what kind of Demon King Darius truly was. Darius casually wondered aloud what should be done with him now. Crying, Lager regretted not selling out the princess earlier. Lowering his head, he claimed that he was actually quite useful, boasting that no one could rival his metallurgy skills. He promised to forge any weapon Darius desired. Darius noted the irony of a hero willingly offering service to a demon king. Lager argued that there was nothing strange about such an arrangement and offered himself completely, even suggesting he could act as a spy. Darius stated that if Lager swore allegiance to him, he would be spared. Lager expressed his gratitude and praised the great demon king, though in his heart he mocked Darius as a fool, convinced he would never truly obey. The scene changed once more as Darius brought Lager to Burge's tower on the 4th floor. Lager froze completely, stiff as a statue. Gordon, terrified, exclaimed that the demon king had brought back a dwarf, no, a hero dwarf. Darius ordered him to be silent. At that moment, Granada contacted them, stating that he had a report to deliver, only to react in shock upon seeing the dwarf. Darius instructed him to give the report later. The princess then addressed Lager, asking whether he had come to save her, quickly adding that he probably had not. Confused, Lager asked Darius why he had been brought there, reminding him that he had been promised freedom. Darius calmly stated that no such promise had been made. Lager insisted that mercy had clearly been guaranteed. Darius confirmed that mercy had indeed been granted. Lager was still alive. The scene returned to the station where preparations for the hero's journey were underway. A holographic communication link shimmered into existence as Granada finally delivered his report with steady composure, explaining that rumors were spreading rapidly among the heroes. Intelligence suggested that the newly emerged Demon King wielded black flames, a belief that had driven the heroes to equip themselves with fire-resistant gear in preparation for battle. Granada continued his report by revealing another rumor circulating among them. Many heroes believed the Demon King had refrained from unleashing demonic beasts out of fear. His prolonged silence was not interpreted as strategy, but as weakness. In their view, restraint signified hesitation rather than calculation. Darius listened without any visible reaction. His expression remained unreadable, his posture perfectly still. When he finally responded, his judgment was cold and dismissive. From his perspective, the heroes had never lost their desire to kill. Darius issued his final directive, ordering Granada to continue monitoring the heroes and report any changes without delay. The connection severed shortly after, leaving Darius alone with his thoughts. He reflected on the Demon King's approach of deliberately withholding demonic beasts. Hero morale was being eroded slowly and methodically. Their expectations were subtly distorted, yet what unsettled him more was the realization that this Demon King possessed an unusually profound understanding of human psychology. Darius wondered whether such a figure had ever existed before. The thought sent a rare chill through him, followed almost immediately by relief. This Demon King was not his enemy. The scene then shifted to Darius's tower, its interior cold and oppressive. There he issued orders to the dwarf blacksmith, Lager Friedrich. Fire cannons were to be installed on the tower's 1st floor, but with one absolute restriction: mana stones were strictly forbidden. The command sent Lager into immediate panic. Constructing such weapons without mana stones bordered on impossibility, and even if completed, their effectiveness against heroes would be severely compromised. Darius silenced any resistance instantly, declaring that discovering a solution was the blacksmith's responsibility alone. He explained his reasoning clearly. Heroes were favored by the dimension itself, granting them exceptionally sharp sensitivity to energy. Any trap powered by mana stones would be detected long before activation. That was precisely why mana stones could not be used. When Lager attempted to object again, Darius's demeanor darkened. A sphere of black magic formed calmly in his hand as he reminded the dwarf of the reason he had been brought there. Lager was known as the greatest blacksmith. If he failed, replacements were plentiful. Crushed emotionally, Lager hastily revealed an alternative method. Lager explained that he had once developed a device capable of completely erasing mana traces. The research had taken 3 years, and the finished prototype remained in his workshop within the dwarf kingdom of Wolfner. Suspicion hardened Darius's expression as he demanded confirmation that this was not another desperate fabrication. Trembling and in tears, Lager swore his honesty. After brief consideration, Darius chose to believe him, though not without precautions. A purple rune-etched collar was secured around Lager's neck. Darius explained its function with disturbing casualness. The restraint could sever the wearer's head instantly with a single gesture and also distorted perception, preventing others from clearly recognizing Lager's face. Any attempt to remove it would be interpreted as escape and result in immediate death. Fully grasping his situation, Lager collapsed and swore absolute obedience. After issuing further instructions, Darius departed with Lager. Together they traveled across multiple kingdoms in search of rare materials and compatible components. The journey lasted nearly a month, during which Darius stored every item within a spatial pocket, preserving each carefully. Their final destination was Wolfner, the dwarf kingdom. By the time they arrived, chaos had already taken hold. A massive boulder crashed down near a group of dwarves, shattering stone and scattering debris. At its center stood Princess Louise Weft, radiating fury. More than a month and a half had passed without any sign of Logger's capture. An elderly dwarf nervously attempted to explain that Logger had constructed countless underground tunnels over the years, and that despite extensive efforts, he had likely escaped. Louise dismissed the explanation outright, concluding instead that Logger must have been kidnapped. In a violent outburst, she seized the old dwarf and issued a deadline of 2 weeks. Failure would result in total extermination. Orders were immediately given to collapse every tunnel Logger had ever created, and the dwarves rushed to comply. As the soldiers dispersed, a concealed section of the wall behind Louise shifted silently. One of Logger's secret tunnels opened. She sensed the disturbance instantly and turned. Although the interference mask prevented facial recognition, the tunnel itself was unmistakable. Only Logger could have known of it. Frozen in fear, Logger revealed himself unintentionally. Louise's rage erupted. A golden aura burst violently around her as she accused him of fleeing to avoid forging her weapon. Logger's frantic attempts to explain only fueled her fury. Declaring absolute authority, she claimed ownership over him and condemned him to lifelong servitude. As she prepared to strike, a violent force detonated between them. Louise was hurled backward, crashing into the ground before regaining her stance effortlessly. Dust filled the chamber, and when it cleared, Darius stepped forward calmly, ordering Logger to retrieve the equipment at once. Unable to identify him due to the interference, Louise demanded his identity. Darius introduced himself simply as the master of the blacksmith she had been abusing. Enraged, Louise launched herself into the air. Their fists collided at terrifying speed, shockwaves tearing through the chamber. The exchange resembled a clash between monsters rather than mortals. Louise caught one of Darius's strikes midair with sheer strength and countered with a brutal blow that sent him crashing into the ceiling. She turned back toward Logger, only for Darius to reappear instantly and slam her into the ground. The battle escalated rapidly. Darius recognized her without hesitation. Louise was the second daughter of Princess Weft, a being of exceptional power even before her growth had fully matured. Allowing her to develop further would turn her into a severe threat. Eliminating her now was the logical choice, but doing so would require releasing his full demonic power. As the battle raged on, Logger frantically dismantled a massive mana phantom machine designed to erase and conceal mana traces. Darius pressed him relentlessly, warning that his survival depended on completing the task within a minute. Louise's power surged even higher. Darius calculated how long he could continue without revealing his true strength. Logger finally shouted that the dismantling was complete. Seizing the opening, Darius delivered a devastating kick to Louise's chest, smashing her into the ground in a massive explosion. Without hesitation, he opened his subspace pocket and ordered Logger to move. Louise rose from the dust, initially dismissive, until she realized that Darius, Logger, and the machine had vanished. Her soldiers arrived moments later. She mocked their slowness before issuing orders for immediate pursuit. Then she stopped. Every tunnel had collapsed. Grinding her teeth, Louise finally understood the truth. Logger had never intended to return. Within the first floor of Burge's tower, the Demon King Darius stood before a colossal magical apparatus. Behind him, Princess Ernan of the Hilderan Kingdom stared in disbelief. Nearby, Logger, now acting as his devoted subordinate, examined the reinforced framework. Darius acknowledged the report and ordered activation. Demonic energy surged from his body as the device roared to life. A translucent system interface appeared before him, requesting synchronization. Without hesitation, Darius authorized it. The process completed instantly. A final system update confirmed that the Mana Phantom had acknowledged Darius as its master. Its power source was fully converted, shifting entirely from mana to pure demonic energy. Darius turned his gaze toward Logger. The dwarf reacted with barely restrained excitement, insisting fervently that he had not interfered in the process in any way. Even so, amazement overwhelmed him. The fusion of the monophin with the tower, let alone the complete conversion of its energy source, surpassed anything previously thought possible. Logger immediately recognized it as a breakthrough beyond even what the original creator could have envisioned. Princess Ernan stepped closer, her eyes gleaming as she stared at the awakened structure. Darius casually suggested that she test it herself. Delighted by the opportunity, she eagerly began preparing a spell. Complex magical symbols formed rapidly as a massive sphere of multicolored magic condensed in the air. Logger panicked instantly. The thought of releasing such overwhelming power after he had just finished cleaning the tower nearly drove him to tears. His frantic pleas were completely ignored as Darius focused solely on observing the phenomenon. A spell of that scale should have been detectable far beyond the tower's walls. Darius moved toward the entrance and examined the outside world. There was nothing, no visual disturbance. No fluctuation in perception. The magic did not leak in the slightest. The effect was immediately apparent. A tower fully synchronized with a monophin completely concealed all internal magical activity. Curiosity stirred within Darius. He extended his demonic energy and attempted to manipulate the tower itself. In an instant, the entire structure vanished from existence. Moments later, with another gesture, it reappeared exactly as before. The realization struck him with quiet intensity. The tower could now be concealed or summoned at will. Though controlling this power freely would take time, Darius immediately understood its future value. A restrained smile formed as demonic light flickered within his eyes. Outside the inner chamber, Lager finally lost all restraint. His excitement burst forth as he begged for permission to examine the device further, nearly requesting permission to dismantle both the magical apparatus and the tower itself before hastily correcting his words. He declared the discovery unprecedented in all recorded history, his behavior bordering on obsession. Dadius studied him carefully, noting how completely Lager had lost control. After brief consideration, permission was granted under one condition. If Lager annihilated the heroes trapped on the first floor, he would be free to do as he wished afterward. Crimson energy surged around Lager as he immediately began chanting, fully immersing himself in what he now considered sacred research. Dadius then turned to Princess Ernan and calmly proposed that she confront the heroes who had reached the fourth floor. She hesitated, momentarily taken aback, though her protest carried a playful tone. Dadius reminded her that she was also a gifted spirit and that she had no intention of returning to her former royal life. Even as he spoke, Dadius recognized the weight of his decision. She remained an innocent princess, unfamiliar with the cruelty of the world, and asking her to oppose her own kind carried undeniable gravity. Ernan fell silent, uncertainty flickering through her thoughts as she considered what powers she could even use. Before she could settle on an answer, Dadius stopped her. Combat would not be necessary. All she needed to do was disrupt the heroes and openly reveal herself as their enemy. Success would be rewarded with another wish. She met his gaze, nodded slowly, and agreed on one condition. She wished to be introduced not as a princess but as his subordinate. Dadius accepted without hesitation. Her face lit up with unmistakable joy, her excitement barely contained. Even so, Dadius instructed her to follow his orders precisely. Some time later, Dadius sat in silence, studying the system screen floating before him. The plan unfolded clearly in his mind. The first floor would thin the heroes' numbers through overwhelming monarch cannon fire. On the fourth floor, Princess Ernan would serve as bait, drawing in survivors to be eliminated. Even so, the strategy was insufficient. With more than 200 heroes advancing, it would not erase even half of them. Only one option remained, strengthening himself further. His gaze shifted to a radiant treasure resting in his hand. Dense demonic energy coiled around it as it shimmered faintly. Elsewhere, Princess Ernan stood within a land of endless snow and biting cold. After several failed attempts, uncertainty lingered between them. Their earlier success now felt less like certainty and more like coincidence. Suddenly, a towering figure appeared before them. Dadius reacted instantly, dark energy gathering around his raised arm. The interruption irritated him. The massive figure bowed deeply, identifying himself as Krutu of the Blue Forest tribe. He and his people sought the Demon King's protection. The gathered tribe fell to their knees, confessing that their ancestors were once demons who had betrayed the demon realm. Bearing that original sin, they now sought redemption through service. Dadius regarded them coldly, immediately recognizing their true intent. They desired power. His gaze sharpened as he noted that their affinity for demonic energy far exceeded their reliance on spirit blossoms. At a silent command, a sealed box was opened. Inside rested a grim lotus encased in frost. Dadius recognized it instantly, understanding why it had eluded him until now. He acknowledged their foresight and their ability to negotiate, unusual traits for a tribe renowned for brute strength. After brief consideration, Dadius accepted only one. A demonic sigil embedded itself into Krutu's body. Overwhelming power surged across the frozen land as his form twisted and transformed, transcending into a true demon. Krutu knelt in absolute submission, offering his life and loyalty. The rest of the tribe followed without hesitation. The scene shifted once more to Urgis Mountain Tower. Power surged throughout the structure. Outside, an orc legion assembled in disciplined ranks. On the first floor, Lager stood ready alongside 60 mono cannons. Dadius reviewed the battlefield one final time. Every piece was positioned exactly as planned. The tower was secured. Princess Ernan awaited her role on the fourth floor. Everything was ready. His dark eyes hardened as he focused on the approaching enemy. He would repay the humiliation of his previous life. Elsewhere, the heroes gazed upward at the towering mountain before them. Urgis Mountain loomed like a silent challenge as they advanced with a single purpose: to slay the Demon King. The heroes' preparation base stood behind them as a magnificent city, a place where countless legends were said to begin. Within its grand central hall, a lavish banquet filled the space with light and sound. The celebration honored the heroes on the eve of their final march. Laughter echoed beneath towering ceilings as music flowed freely and glasses clinked together. Warriors, nobles, knights, mages, mercenaries, and merchants gathered as one, indulging in triumph and anticipation. Among them, a young hero clad in polished armor stood beside the elderly Lord Castellan. The lord regarded him warmly, remarking that someone with such achievements carried himself with remarkable humility. The hero expressed gratitude for the generosity of the host and the banquet prepared in their honor. Lord Castellan, in turn, spoke of his pride in witnessing a journey destined to be etched into history. After a brief pause, he proposed that the hero Lord Hillen address the assembled crowd. Hillen hesitated, visibly uncomfortable with the attention. Yet the lord pressed on, noting that such words would raise morale before the march. With no graceful way to refuse, Hillen reluctantly agreed. Seizing the moment, Lord Castellan announced to the hall that Hillen wished to speak. The noise gradually faded as all eyes turned toward him. Hillen stepped forward, gathering himself as calm replaced his hesitation. Facing the assembled crowd, he acknowledged every group present, from nobles and knights to mercenaries and merchants alike. He declared that their long expedition had finally reached its decisive moment. With unwavering confidence, Helen spoke of their march for justice, boasting that it had frightened the Demon King so thoroughly that not a single monster had dared obstruct their path. Laughter erupted throughout the hall as confidence surged among the attendees. Yet Helen tempered their enthusiasm, reminding them not to lower their guard. Every possible preparation, he assured them, had already been made. His resolve sharpened as he proclaimed that the following day would mark the end of the foolish Demon King. Raising his glass, righteous fervor blazing in his eyes, he invoked the kidnapping of the Hilderan Kingdom's crown princess, Princess Ernan, declaring it time for the world to remember who truly held power. The speech ended in a fiery declaration of dominance, and the hall exploded into thunderous cheers. Amid the chaos, Granada the elf observed everything from a distance. Calm and analytical, he noted that the size of the expedition had neither grown nor diminished, exactly as the Demon King had predicted. Reflecting on the speech, Granada acknowledged that Helen's charisma was the true driving force behind the expedition's success. Helen had secured funding from the guilds and retained the loyalty of even the most unreliable mercenaries. Yet unease lingered. Granada's thoughts returned to the last tower he had investigated, entirely empty. That unsettling memory made him question whether the final confrontation would truly be as straightforward as it appeared. A dark, treacherous thought briefly surfaced, whether now would be the perfect moment to betray the heroes. Panic seized him instantly. He chastised himself for even entertaining such an idea. Subjugating the Demon King would finally free him from his curse, a future that undeniably benefited him. Shaking off the thought, Granada decided to clear his mind. He stepped outside for fresh air, intending to send a report. Later that night, beneath the glow of a full moon, Granada stood alone on a high balcony. A faintly glowing device rested in his hand as he communicated quietly. From the other side came a calm report confirming arrival at Holton Walk and stating that the climb would begin the following day, this time unmistakably belonging to the Demon King Deus. His tone carried cold authority as he issued final warnings. Granada was told to beware of the snow during the climb, to remain vigilant at night, and to heed one final cryptic instruction. When the tower door opened, he was never to be near it. The connection ended abruptly. Granada stood frozen, unable to grasp the meaning of the warning. Confusion weighed heavily on his mind. Suddenly, a presence emerged behind him. Startled, Granada turned to find Helen standing there, relaxed and observant. Quickly noticing Granada's tension, Helen offered him a drink, an elven fruit wine known for its calming warmth. Granada accepted, and as he drank, his nerves gradually settled. Helen casually remarked that Granada seemed troubled and asked whether he truly believed they could succeed against the Demon King. The tone was light, almost teasing, but the question lingered heavily. Granada hesitated before responding. As he did, Helen stared into his own cup, his reflection wavering. The cheerful expression he had worn earlier slowly faded, replaced by quiet honesty. He admitted uncertainty. Granada was caught off guard by the sudden candor. Helen continued, explaining that although people trusted him and followed his lead, attacking a Demon King's tower had always been hell. It had never once been an easy victory. Attempting reassurance, Granada mentioned Helen's past achievement defeating the Demon King of Lust, implying that a newly emerged Demon King should not be as dangerous. As the words left his mouth, Granada realized something unsettling. Very little was actually known about how Helen had killed the Demon King of Lust. Growing curious, he asked about that battle. Helen avoided the subject. His expression shifted once more, returning to the familiar heroic facade. He credited his past victory to the brave comrades who had always stood at the front, facing monsters head-on. Turning to Granada, he placed a firm hand on his shoulder and reaffirmed his trust in him. With renewed confidence, Helen declared that he would lead the coming battle and asked Granada to guard his flank. Granada nodded in agreement. Satisfied, Helen wrapped an arm around him and guided him back toward the banquet hall. The two walked side by side, Helen leading his elven companion, his expression calm and unreadable, concealing the true nature of their alliance. Later, alone with his thoughts, Helen reflected on the conversation. A cynical smirk crossed his face as his gaze drifted to a ring set with a red gemstone. In that moment, the heroic mask vanished, revealing something far darker beneath. His true thoughts surfaced clearly as he silently placed his expectations upon Granada once again. The following morning, the preparation base buzzed with activity. As the massive expedition finally departed, citizens lined the streets, cheering loudly. Words of encouragement filled the air as the heroes marched forward. Cries praising Lord Granada and Lord Wharton echoed throughout the city. At the head of the procession, Granada marched with calm focus, his gaze fixed straight ahead. Beside him, Helen walked proudly, basking in the admiration of the crowd. Soon the city disappeared behind them, and the noise faded into silence. The expedition entered the harsh Urgest Mountain Canyon. Endless snow-covered cliffs surrounded them as biting winds cut through the air. The massive force wound its way through the desolate landscape, the cold their constant companion. Casual conversations emerged. Earlier worries slowly faded. Some remarked on the surprisingly mild weather, noting the clear sky and lack of snowfall. Confidence grew as others claimed that reaching the tower would be easy at this pace. Laughter followed, along with jokes about the absence of rumored disaster-class monsters and claims that any such creatures were likely too frightened to appear with Helen leading the expedition. That confidence shattered abruptly. A warrior felt a tap on his shoulder. When he pulled his hand back, it was coated in sticky purple slime. Confusion turned to horror as he turned around. Towering over them stood a massive ghoul. Panic erupted instantly as screams tore through the canyon. More ghouls poured in from all sides. Hillen's presence cut through the chaos as he raised his sword, his resolve unshaken. Orders were issued swiftly, placing the expedition on full alert. The narrow canyon became a battlefield. Knights shielded the mages and pushed forward, steel clashing against undead flesh as magic lit up the frozen terrain. Suddenly, a new warning echoed through the ranks. A colossal skeletal frost giant emerged from the canyon wall, its massive body formed entirely of ice. Shock rippled through the expedition. Hillen immediately ordered a retreat, declaring his intent to face the monster alone. As the expedition fled the canyon, Hillen charged forward. Blue energy crashed against the frost giant, yet the creature remained unmoved. Undeterred, Hillen pressed the assault. The frost giant's crimson eyes glowed as it swung its massive arm downward. Hillen met it with a powerful upward slash, shattering the icy limb and sending shockwaves through the canyon. Without pause, he destroyed the creature's remaining arm and carved through its massive frame, overwhelming it with relentless force. Seizing the perfect moment, Hillen unleashed a final flurry of devastating attacks and signaled the expedition to escape. The heroes did not hesitate. They surged past him as explosions erupted behind them. Hillen continued to hold the frost giant at bay until the last moment. Enraged and denied its prey, the monster released a final furious roar before collapsing inward and self-destructing in a colossal explosion that shook the canyon. The survivors stumbled into a nearby snowy forest, collapsing from exhaustion and shock. Conversations quickly turned grim as they reflected on the horrors they had endured. Yet casualties were low. Many credited their survival to Hillen's overwhelming strength. Speculation spread rapidly. Rumors claimed that Hillen had absorbed the power of the Demon King of Lust, placing him on par with the Demon King himself. Confidence returned as faith in Hillen solidified. Granada listened in silence, wondering if Hillen truly could defeat the Demon King. That hope was short-lived. Ahead of them stood another threat, a tribe of massive blue-skinned orcs led by a towering chieftain with curved horns. There was no time to rest. Granada immediately recognized them as pole beings infused with demonic energy, servants of the Demon King. As the chieftain stepped forward, the ground beneath the heroes began to tremble. A deep rumble echoed through the mountains. Deus's warning resurfaced in Granada's mind. Terror spread across his face as understanding dawned. The snow began to shift. Cracks spread across the mountainside as ice groaned under its own weight. The sound of an avalanche filled the air. Panic consumed Granada as the disaster struck. A massive avalanche tore down the mountainside, burying the entire expedition in an instant. Snow and ice swallowed warriors, mages, and heroes alike, dragging them into frozen chaos. Granada's final scream was crushed beneath the overwhelming weight. Far away, within his towering fortress, Demon King Deus sat calmly upon his throne. Holographic screens displayed the unfolding catastrophe. One by one, the images of the heroes vanished. A sinister smirk spread across his face as he watched their final moments. Leaning back, his eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction. His plan had succeeded perfectly. This time, none of them would escape. Still seated upon his throne, Deus remained utterly composed. His posture showed no tension, and his expression betrayed nothing. When he spoke, there was no emotion in his voice, only absolute certainty. The design he described had been set in motion long before the heroes realized it. The cold intensified until it became suffocating, and damage reports became meaningless as the blizzard erased all sense of order. Everything within that frozen domain was consumed. Amid the roaring wind, Deus raised his voice, issuing commands through the storm. He ordered the heroes to establish a temporary camp and search for those scattered by the earlier catastrophe. Every movement was slowed by relentless snow and freezing gusts, turning even the simplest actions into exhausting struggles. As the calamity unfolded, the Demon King continued his explanation with calm detachment. The second command had already been issued. When darkness finally settled, the situation worsened even further. From within the forest's deepest shadows, ghoul-type monsters emerged, their forms blending almost perfectly with the snow. Massive forest beasts followed soon after, each heavy step shaking the frozen ground beneath the heroes' feet. One of them froze in place as recognition struck. Realizing that orc monsters had appeared once again, weapons were drawn at once, and the heroes tightened their formation, preparing themselves for yet another battle. From a distance, Granada ground his teeth together. Frustration warped his expression as he mentally cursed the Demon King's recklessness. Events were escalating far faster than anticipated, spiraling well beyond the limits of calculated warfare. At last, the Demon King himself acted. A grim smile spread across his face as he advanced without hesitation. Avalanche by day and monsters by night, the cycle was merciless and unending. Long before the heroes could fully comprehend the true nature of the trap, exhaustion would begin to eat away at both their bodies and their minds. Their collapse was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable. 3 days passed in what felt like a never-ending nightmare. A constant struggle balanced precariously between survival and death. By the time the heroes reached the highest summit of the Urgis Mountains, the toll was undeniable. Their movements had slowed, their breathing had grown heavy, and their strength was visibly depleted. One night, confusion spread when someone quietly pointed out that the Demon King's tower was nowhere to be seen. The realization rippled through the group like a shockwave, freezing them in disbelief. Deus raised his voice, disbelief cutting sharply through his words as he emphasized that a tower was supposed to stand at the summit. Before the heroes could move, a commander stepped forward and halted him. With a firm stance and a restrained but resolute tone, the commander declared the mission a failure, stating that continuing any further would only lead to meaningless loss of life. From that point onward, survival had to take precedence over victory. Dais froze. He turned slowly, shock plainly visible on his face. The response he received was unwavering, tinged with apology yet unchanged. Grinding his teeth, Dais remained silent. 6 days after entering the Urgis Mountains, the Demon King's tower was finally discovered. The moment it appeared, fury erupted among the heroes. When the tower gates were forced open, confidence surged once more through the heroes' ranks. One knight laughed dismissively, declaring the first floor nothing more than a nest of weak enemies and urging everyone to advance without hesitation. That was when the Demon King spoke. His voice echoed coldly throughout the tower, reverberating from every direction at once. A chilling smile spread across his face as his mere presence became suffocating. The moment the tower doors opened, those who stepped inside were cast directly into hell. Magical cannon constructs materialized across the battlefield, rising into position and completely encircling the heroes. Lightning tore violently through the air, its roar deafening. Dais stared ahead in disbelief as the sheer scale of the threat revealed itself. Any lingering confidence shattered instantly. From within the control chamber, the Demon King observed calmly. This had only been the opening strike. Below, Dais struggled to steady himself. He tightened his grip on his sword and forced his body upright, his breathing uneven. Confusion and rage churned violently within him as nothing he had just witnessed aligned with logic, strategy, or any battle experience he possessed. Through the drifting smoke, Granada emerged. Though visibly shaken, he remained unharmed and reported that he had narrowly avoided the cannon strike. Relief briefly crossed Dais's face. Without hesitation, he pushed for advancing to the next floor. Granada hesitated, carefully studying him now that only the two of them remained. The danger was undeniable. Dais responded firmly, reminding him of his past victory over the Demon King of Lust and the power gained from that battle. Compared to that ordeal, this enemy was not beyond reach. As long as they stood together, victory was still possible. After a moment of silence, Granada agreed, and the two advanced side by side. The second floor was empty. The third floor was no different. Slowly, anger crept across Dais's expression. The absence of enemies felt deeply unnatural. A tower of such scale should have been crawling with monsters, yet there was nothing, no movement, no hostility, not even lingering mana. As Hillen voiced his frustration aloud, Granada remained silent, sensing deliberate intent behind the emptiness. If both floors were completely vacant, then the battlefield itself was being rearranged by a powerful hand. His thoughts inevitably turned to Princess Ernan. Even so, Dais refused to lower his guard. He warned that danger could emerge at any moment and continued forward with measured steps, prepared for hidden traps. When they reached the fourth floor, both stopped in disbelief. Before them stretched a lush forest, vibrant with greenery and arranged like a tranquil garden rather than a battlefield. Granada released a slow breath and confirmed the truth, identifying it as a curse, a spatial distortion created through advanced magic. Doubt crept into Hillen's thoughts as he questioned whether they were even inside the Demon King's tower anymore. Before any answer formed, he noticed a figure standing quietly ahead. His breath caught. A young woman stood there, clad in demonic attire and radiating dark mana. Her appearance was delicate, almost fragile, yet profoundly unsettling. She identified herself as one of the 4 heavenly kings who served and guarded the Demon King, the Dark Spirit Master. Her demeanor was light and playful, as though the situation amused her. Hillen had come to rescue a princess, yet she now stood before him as an enemy. Silence fell over the forest, then realization struck him like a blade. Recognition widened his eyes as despair flickered across Granada's face. The young woman rejected the title of princess and asserted her identity as the Dark Spirit Master. With effortless ease, she summoned dark spirit magic. Hillen's shock deepened as he recognized the spell, a pinnacle of spirit arts that only Princess Ernan could wield flawlessly. Everything connected at once. The nighttime ambushes, the hidden tower, the mono cannons, the empty floors, none of it had been chaos. It had all been strategy, and Princess Ernan stood at its center. Disbelief curdled into bitterness as Dais let out a hollow laugh. Warmth drained from his expression as the truth settled in. The princess he had crossed hell to save had been protecting the Demon King all along. Rage surged violently within him. Before he could act, the space trembled. Dark purple energy erupted across the garden, crushing the ground beneath their feet. The Demon King appeared, his presence warping the air itself as demonic power poured outward. His cold gaze locked onto Dais. The Demon King had finally revealed himself. Resentment ignited deep within Hillen. Realizing how completely he had been cornered, he understood that power alone was no longer enough. He needed more. Turning sharply, he demanded Granada's strength. The ground trembled as the Demon King's gaze shifted. Hillen stepped closer, insisting that they combine their power. Granada hesitated, confusion flashing across his face as he questioned how such a fusion could even be possible. Before any explanation came, his body stiffened. Vitality began draining from his blood. Panic surged as the sensation intensified, his strength bleeding away with every heartbeat. Hillen's expression hardened into something cold and detached. He reassured Granada calmly that everything would be fine as long as he remained by his side. Granada collapsed. The Demon King recognized it instantly. The artifact Hillen revealed exposed the truth, a forbidden relic known as the Elf Eater, capable of converting an elf's boundless vitality directly into mana. Once activated, survival was impossible. Hillen pressed his foot against Granada's face, justifying the act as a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. The Demon King watched in silence. Then he smiled. The act was contemptible, disgraceful, and unmistakably human. He calmly noted that removing the ring would instantly erase all borrowed strength. Hillen erupted into manic laughter, convinced that even the Demon King of Lust had failed to take that ring from him. The Demon King responded with a single name: Gordon. In the next instant, Deus's expression twisted in shock as searing pain tore through his body and blood sprayed into the air. He had sensed nothing, no presence, no mana fluctuation, no warning whatsoever. His hand went slack, strength draining away instantly. Standing behind him was Gordon, the Demon King's loyal servant. His blade was already lowered, as though the strike had been nothing more than a trivial inconvenience. Before Deus could recover, Gordon struck again, sending him crashing violently across the ground. He lay there staring upward in disbelief. In that moment, Deus fully understood the threat before him. Gordon was a high-ranking demon. Even with the artifact's power coursing through him, Deus had been utterly overwhelmed. Then pressure descended. The Demon King appeared behind him, gripping his shoulder with effortless strength. Crimson light burned within his eyes as a faint, amused laugh escaped him. Escape was impossible. Deus attempted to move, but his body refused to respond. Only then did the truth become clear to him. Space itself had become a cage. Before him loomed a massive wolf-shaped presence, an ancient ruler whose authority had once dominated the entire continent. Understanding settled into Deus's eyes. There was nowhere left to flee. Dark energy gathered around the Demon King, swirling violently as the ground cracked beneath its weight. His voice carried a chilling calm as he declared that the moment had come to reveal what a true Demon King truly was. The rumbling intensified. Deus's eyes widened in pure shock as oppressive energy spread across the battlefield, whispering destruction into every corner of the world. After Deus landed a devastating strike, Hillen remained sprawled on the ground, half dead yet still alive. Even after defeating him, Deus acknowledged that Hillen's power and strength were remarkable, as surviving such a brutal attack was no small feat. Deus then issued a cold order for Gordon to bind Hillen's hands and throw him into prison. He further instructed that the other humans who had collapsed outside the door be locked up as well. Gordon accepted the commands without hesitation and moved immediately to carry them out. Granada, by contrast, was in terrible condition. His body resembled a white skeleton, and he groaned in pain, claiming that he could already see the afterlife. Deus praised his efforts and mockingly rewarded him before using Spirit Blossom on him. In an instant, Granada was completely healed. He stood frozen in shock, stunned by the sudden recovery. Deus then applied Spirit Blossom to the princess as well. Watching this unfold, Granada quietly wondered whether Deus had healed him in the exact same manner. Soon after, the dwarf cried out in excitement. Deus acknowledged his hard work and granted him permission to dismantle the tower. The dwarf reacted with overwhelming joy, celebrating loudly and expressing boundless gratitude toward the Demon King. With everything settled, Deus instructed everyone to return to their duties and restore and maintain the floors they had been assigned. After delivering his final orders, he departed the area. As the situation calmed, Granada reflected on everything he had witnessed. Even after such a fierce battle, the Demon King appeared completely unharmed, a sight that only reinforced his fearsome reputation. The princess, however, seemed lost in thought. When Granada asked what troubled her, she brushed it aside, claiming it was nothing. Still, she quietly remarked that the Demon King appeared tired. The scene shifted to Deus alone. Away from everyone's eyes, he lay exhausted on the floor, teeth clenched as he admitted to himself how close the battle had truly been. He reminded himself that a Demon King could never afford to show weakness. Inwardly, he cursed Hillen, acknowledging just how dangerous that human truly was. Deus reflected on what it meant to face one of the 10 stars, the 10 strongest heroes on the continent. He recognized that while Hillen was among them, he was considered one of the weaker members. He admitted that he had barely used any demonic energy points to strengthen himself in this life, partly because he lacked sufficient resources. He knew with certainty that if Hillen had been in perfect condition, victory would not have been possible. Instead, his plan had gradually worn Hillen down, provoked him, and pushed him into a state of panic. As events unfolded, Hillen's field of view narrowed, exposing a clear opening. That single mistake allowed Deus's all-out strike to land successfully. For now, Deus considered it a perfect victory, even if it fell short of the usual standards expected of a Demon King. He realized that something unprecedented had occurred. He had successfully altered fate itself. That realization filled him with resolve. He believed believed that he could change the future and finally take revenge on the heroes who had once destroyed him. As the tension faded from the battlefield, the scene transitioned to the Holton Walk press conference hall. Chaos reigned as people argued loudly among themselves. Reporters accused officials of spreading nonsense, openly mocking the claim that the heroes had simply given up because they could not find the tower. Investors raged with fury, demanding accountability and pressing to know who was responsible for the failure. Amid the uproar, one man insisted that the mission had not yet failed. He claimed there was still hope, emphasizing that Sir Hillen Cargill and the great heroes had not given up. According to him, they were still searching for the Demon King's tower and needed only a little more time. The king erupted in anger, cursing Hillen Cargill for his arrogance and failure. He raged that Hillen had spoken boldly yet delivered nothing. He declared that if Hillen failed to rescue his princess, execution would follow without mercy. The princess, burning with frustration, attempted to speak about the hero's journey, but the king cut her off completely. He showed no interest in explanations and ordered that lodger be found immediately. Around them, whispers spread rapidly. Some claimed that Sir Hillen had never returned. Others insisted that he was already dead. As these rumors spread, news of the new Demon King traveled swiftly across the continent. The story became twisted and exaggerated with each retelling. The world sank into deep sorrow. Because of this widespread despair, the tower's demonic energy points accumulated at an alarming rate. The scene then shifted to the Heroes Guild headquarters, where a tense conference was underway. The other heroes questioned Hero Wharton relentlessly, demanding to know whether there was even the slightest falsehood in his report. Wharton swore on his name that everything he had said was the truth. An elder hero responded coldly, stating that the situation was extremely serious. However, since the identity of the new Demon King remained unknown, he insisted that caution was essential. He reminded everyone that Hillen Cargill was one of the 10 stars and could not be defeated easily. A decision was reached to wait 10 more days for any news of Hillen. If nothing was heard after that period, then all heroes across the continent, 4,728 in total, would launch a full-scale assault to eliminate the new Demon King. From there, the scene moved underground to Burgess Tower Prison, where Hillen was being held captive. Deus arrived and observed him, noting that Hillen was already awake and remarking on his exceptional recovery speed. Hillen immediately stated that if he was being kept alive, Deus must want something from him and demanded that he get straight to the point. Deus responded with a smirk, clearly pleased by Hillen's willingness to talk. He made his offer clear, instructing Hillen to become his vassal. Hillen was stunned, completely caught off guard by the proposal. Deus then placed a bag filled with gold coins in front of him. He explained that a hero's journey required an enormous amount of money, covering food for hundreds, security, lodging, membership fees, armor, weapons, and even top-grade consumables. Normally, these expenses were paid through investments from merchant groups and nobles. He explained that when a Demon King was defeated, heroes' lives were transformed, but when they failed, they were buried under crushing debt. That was the fate of heroes who relied on investments. This time, all investments had been focused on a single individual, the captain of the hero party, Hillen Cargill himself. Hillen silently acknowledged the truth. Even if he escaped, he would be branded a failed hero and forced to live in hiding for the rest of his life, endlessly hunted by debt. He questioned how Deus knew all of this. At that moment, Granada stepped forward and revealed that he had been the one who told him. Hillen shouted Granada's name in rage, accusing him of betrayal. Granada fired back just as fiercely, calling Hillen a scammer and reminding him of what had been done to him. He declared that he had been on Deus's side from the very beginning. Deus then revealed the real reason for Hillen's failure. He stated calmly that there had never been a Demon King like him before. Still, something about Deus's confidence unsettled him deeply. Deus laughed and revealed Armani's orb in his hand. He pointed out that if one of the strongest heroes secretly interfered with human plans, the question became whether humanity could truly succeed at all. He explained that the orb was a magical tool used to monitor his subordinates. Once it entered the body, it would instantly attach itself to the brain. Darius would immediately know if Hillen harbored any hostility toward him. Then it was shown that the rest of Hillen's companions lay scattered across the ground, half dead and groaning in pain as they struggled to move. Hillen desperately tried to stop Darius, insisting that a hero as strong as himself was immune to mind control magic. He believed that the moment the orb entered his body, it would disappear and that none of this was his fault. Granada responded with a grin, explaining that a hero could have their mental defenses dispelled by their own will. Darius reacted with a mocking smirk, making it clear that Hillen's own words had sealed his fate. Enraged, Hillen hurled insults at Darius, calling him a deranged elf and demanding to know if he felt any shame. He declared that Darius should be the one ashamed, accusing him of wasting a precious magical tool, and swore that he would never submit to a Demon King. Ignoring his resistance, Darius coldly silenced him and forcibly made Hillen swallow the orb. Agonizing pain tore through Hillen's body as the magic took hold. Granada observed that Hillen was remarkably tenacious and questioned what would happen if he chose death instead. Darius showed no concern, calmly reasoning that a greedy human who treated his comrades as disposable tools for money would never sacrifice himself. A status window appeared, identifying Hillen Cargill. His equipment was listed as Armani's orb and his status was now marked as a Demon King's vassal. Hillen cursed bitterly as the transformation was completed. The scene then returned to the castle where Gordon addressed Darius. Although Hillen Cargill had been made a vassal, the massive debt of 100,000 gold meant his actions would be heavily restricted. Gordon pointed out that the gold coins previously exchanged for demonic energy points amounted to barely 2,000 gold, a sum comparable to a small nation's annual budget, and questioned how more would be gathered. Darius responded with a confident smirk, stating that it was about time he received a message. When Gordon expressed confusion, Darius clarified that he was referring to the annual gathering of demon kings known as the Unison of Towers. In his thoughts, Darius reflected on his previous life, remembering how he had never attended such gatherings because he found the idea of demon kings banding together repulsive. Yet now he reasoned that the other demon kings had survived in Arian for a long time and must have accumulated vast amounts of gold and treasure. Gordon reacted in shock, believing that Darius intended to exchange demonic energy points for money once again. In the past, Gordon would have protested strongly, but after confronting the heroes directly, he understood the necessity of Darius's methods. He realized that if they had followed the old standards, they would never have been able to stop the heroes. With no other choice, he accepted this truth and resolved to believe in his demon king. At that moment, news arrived that an invitation to the Unison of Towers had been delivered. Gordon immediately informed Darius. Darius responded with a sly smile, declaring that they would go. He resolved that they would swindle his senior demon kings. Gordon acknowledged the order and pledged his obedience. The scene shifted to the Tower of Lies, specifically the demon king's room on the 13th floor. Darius entered with a faint grin, noting that he hoped he was not late for the appointment. He observed that everyone had gathered early and wondered if there had really been that much to discuss without him. Draxon Doldov, the Beast King of the Wolf Beastmen race, stepped forward and welcomed Darius. Reyna Soldan, the Demon Lord of the Winters and a Frost Demon, remarked that Darius was the one everyone had been talking about. Uger Belvek, the Demon King of Indestructibility from the Titan race, stated that the fool who had insulted Jason Kochman had already been taken away. Jason Kochman, known as the Devil of Lies from an unknown tribe, also happily welcomed Darius. Darius responded with a smile, internally labeling them as pathetic. He commented on Harmony and questioned whether a Demon King should feel ashamed. In his thoughts, he admitted that he knew this was the right path for Arian, yet something still lingered in his mind. Belvek suddenly erupted in anger and cursed at Darius, demanding what a newcomer like him could possibly know about Arian. Darius calmly reflected that by scratching the surface just a little, it was easy to read people. He sensed that Belvek was openly radiating murderous intent. Darius smirked and mockingly called him an idiot, stating that he thought he was the only one in charge there. Belvek's rage intensified as he threatened to kill Darius if that was what he wanted. Darius replied casually, telling him to try if he could. As the two demon kings locked eyes, Jason intervened, reminding Belvek that this place existed for harmony and asking him not to ruin it. In Darius' mind, he noticed that the killing intent of both demon kings vanished instantly. He realized it was not magic and wondered whether it was Jason's power or the power of the tower itself. Darius agreed to proceed. Jason thanked him for his cooperation. Darius considered whether this phenomenon was similar to Mana's ghost, then dismissed the thought as unfounded speculation. He reminded himself not to let his guard down. Jason announced the start of the harmony at the top and declared that everyone could now speak freely. Darius remarked that it was not particularly impressive. Draxon angrily demanded to know from Belvek where Hillen Cargill was now. Darius fell silent and finally stated that Hillen Cargill was. The scene smoothly transitioned to the adjutant's reception room within the Tower of Lies. There, the aides of the Demon King of Beasts and the aides of the Devil of Lies stared coldly at Gordon. One of them questioned whether Hillen Cargill was dead. Gordon, visibly nervous, claimed that he did not know and explained that he had not even come to the top. He guessed that Hillen Cargill might be wandering around Mount Irgist and begged them not to question him further. Another beast scoffed, saying that it made no sense and that the tower should be visible if that were true. Gordon responded that it was not their tower. A different beast remarked that perhaps the rumors were true and mentioned His Majesty the Demon King. Gordon thought to himself that everything was indeed as Darius had said. Darius' earlier instructions echoed in his mind, reminding him that if other officers asked about Hillen Cargill, he was to say that he did not know and to act as a spy. He recalled Darius emphasizing that strict confidentiality was the top priority. Even so, Gordon felt something was strange. He realized that the Demon King had not been wrong. Gordon finally spoke. He suddenly shouted that the devil he served was a rebel, a fool who never listened to anyone. He complained that if left alone for even a moment, that devil would start doing bizarre things and angrily declared that if things were going to be like this, then everything should just be done without him. As the outburst ended, Hillen felt an unexpected sense of relief wash over him, and he could not understand why it felt so refreshing. Hearing Hillen outburst, the remaining beastmen responded with understanding. They expressed that they already knew and truly understood how things were. They complained that all demon lords were the same and repeated the words about their own demon king again and again. As Hillen heard this, tears poured from his eyes. In his heart, he realized that he had truly needed this small moment of comfort. The scene transitioned smoothly back to the Tower of Lies. Belvek stared at Darius in disbelief, questioning whether Dais genuinely expected him to accept the situation as it was. Dais responded calmly, affirming that this was indeed exactly what he expected. Belvec erupted in anger. He pointed out that Hill and Cargill had not even arrived yet and accused Dais of not even building the tower on top of the mountain. His frustration reached its peak as he shouted about the tower being 82% complete, demanding to know who Dais thought he was fooling with such nonsense. Jason chimed in, remarking that the situation remained unchanged with warriors still targeting the tower. He questioned why Burji Dais had abandoned his own tower just to come here. Mockery dripped from his words as he referred to Dais as a demon king who had lost his tower and sarcastically recalled the lessons from the Demon King Academy, calling him the best leader ever with clear irony. Dais dismissed the concern outright, stating that there was nothing to worry about because he would personally protect his own tower. Internally, he admitted that something had been bothering him for some time, particularly the Devil of Lies. When Jason attempted to continue in the same mocking tone, Dais cut him off, signaling that there was no need for further commentary. Draxon, clearly irritated, questioned whether Dais truly believed that Grand Duke Arcane would ignore this situation. Dais replied flatly that it did not matter what that old woman said. Draxon silently acknowledged that Dais was without question extremely stubborn. Dais reflected inwardly that even if he confronted them directly, there would be no way to confirm anything. For now, his doubts were sufficiently settled. He concluded that avoiding unnecessary trouble was better than being caught and reminded himself of their real objective. The top priority was collecting 100,000 gold. After that, the conversation among the demon lords continued. Burji Dais appeared far more active in the discussion than expected. As Dais observed the exchange, he realized that even among demon kings a clear hierarchy existed. The Demon King of Lies stood firmly at the top tier. Dais carefully observed and gathered information, paying close attention to which demon king seemed particularly desperate for magic points. In the midst of his observations, Reyna suddenly cast a cold gaze toward Dais, leaving him momentarily confused. The scene shifted to the balcony on the 13th floor of the Tower of Lies. Reyna stood there alone. Dais approached her and asked what was going on. Reyna explained that it was not a secretive matter. After hearing the rumors, she had simply wanted to speak with him privately. Dais was surprised that Reyna specifically wanted to talk to him. Reyna turned toward him and confirmed it directly. She stated that she agreed with some of his opinions. Dais was visibly shocked and wondered whether Reyna had ever said anything like this to him in his previous life. Reyna clarified that he should not misunderstand her intentions. She explained that she did not hate orthodoxy the way he did and that she believed in classical values. However, she also believed that flexibility was sometimes necessary, especially in Arian, which was precisely why she had wanted to meet him. Compared to the others, she added, he was at least someone she could communicate with. Dais shared his thoughts in response. Reyna replied that it was not bad and admitted that he was better than she had initially expected. Dais accepted the compliment with mild surprise. Reyna then handed him an item and explained that it was a personal communication port. She told him that if he ever needed advice, he could contact her at any time. She added that as long as he did not insult the Demon King's standards in front of her, she would tolerate him. She expressed her hope that someone capable of proper communication like Dais would not disappear anytime soon. Dais asked why she did not simply speak with the Devil of Lies instead. Reyna explained that his mind could not be read and that while he was better than the other two, there were still limits. With that explanation, Reyna left the balcony. Left alone, Dais admitted to himself that he still could not fully trust her. Even so, Reyna Soldan remained in his mind as an unexpected and valuable gain. At the same time, the scene shifted elsewhere, inside the Tower of Burjus. On the first floor of Burjus Tower, the princess arrived after baking cookies for Lodger. She cheerfully presented the cookies to him and urged him to try them. Lodger was surprised to see snacks inside the Demon King's tower. The princess laughed softly and explained that the ingredients had been purchased by the Demon King himself. With the assistance of spirits, she had attempted to bake them on her own. Lodger praised her as a genius spiritist and remarked that the atmosphere felt unusually comfortable. The princess encouraged him once more, inviting him to taste the cookies. Lodger chuckled and decided to eat them with gratitude. Inwardly, Lodger reflected that the princess had been raised without ever having to lift a finger, without even a single drop of water touching her hands. He assumed that homemade cookies from someone like her would not be particularly good. Even so, he resolved to call them tasty out of courtesy. The moment he took a bite, his thoughts completely collapsed. The flavor overwhelmed him and the taste caused his mana to sway violently. He realized that he had never tasted anything like these cookies before. To him, they tasted like heaven itself. The princess watched him closely and asked about the taste. Lodger found himself unable to look away, completely stunned by what she had created. The princess explained that she had mixed a small amount of sesame oil into the dough and waited shyly for his reaction. Relieved that it had turned out well, Lodger struggled to understand why something like this felt so precious to him. He sensed his mana draining before suddenly surging again. The princess smiled and explained that this was a gift meant to build a friendship for the future. The princess then playfully offered the idea of giving some to Granada as well, giggling as she spoke. Lodger reacted by remarking that the shock would be even greater than before. The princess grew even more excited, wondering whether the Demon King himself would like them too. Lodger acknowledged the thought as the moment settled into a quiet calm. The scene then transitioned smoothly back to Dias, who had just finished his private conversation with Reyna and made his way back to the meeting hall. Upon returning, he immediately noticed that the area was completely empty. Dias observed that everyone had already left. Jason confirmed that the Harmony meeting of the tower had officially ended. Dias remarked that it had ended far too quickly. Sensing his tone, Jason offered him a cup of tea, suggesting that he might be feeling some regret. Dias dismissed the notion entirely, making it clear that he felt no sadness over it. Maintaining a calm demeanor, Jason insisted that Dias, as a human, was in desperate need of something essential, and that thing was money. The statement left Dias visibly shocked. Internally, he questioned what Jason truly meant and wondered how he could possibly know something like that. Jason made it clear that pretending was meaningless. He stated that Draxon had already told him everything. The tension in that moment sharply intensified, but Jason dismissed it entirely, stating that there was no need to waste time on meaningless psychological warfare. He immediately moved to the main point and proposed a deal involving demonic energy points in exchange for human currency. Dishers reacted cautiously, demanding to know Jason's true intentions. In response, Jason let out a quiet chuckle and revealed his plan. Aligning himself with Burgess, he expressed his hope that they would maintain a good relationship moving forward, reinforcing his willingness to cooperate and support their mutual interests. With that, the scene smoothly shifted to the first floor of Burgess Tower. Large sacks filled with gold were revealed, sent by Jason as part of their agreement. Dishers immediately gave instructions to take 100,000 worth of gold and move it without delay. Helen stood frozen in shock, realizing that Jason had truly fulfilled his promise. Dishers carefully analyzed the situation, suspecting that Jason might possess the means to track the flow of money. He realized that the worst possible outcome would be becoming nothing more than Jason's puppet. Turning his attention to those present, Dishers explained that everyone who remained had already been transformed into dark knights and dark magicians. He pointed out the individual standing at the center, stating that his name was Ammon, a member of the Golden Moon Merchant Guild, and revealed that he had already been aware of this when the contract was first established. Helen listened silently as Dishers continued speaking. Dishers instructed that the dark knights and dark magicians of Burgess Tower would be responsible for managing the funds, emphasizing that they would obey his commands with absolute loyalty and without hesitation. At the same time, the dark knights and dark magicians who had been forced into binding contracts by Dishers were filled with deep resentment. Within their hearts, they silently pleaded for Helen to save them from their current fate. Dishers then stated that the situation was not a complete failure, since everyone was still alive and a debt could still be repaid. From this, the implication arose that they might be able to return to their roles as heroes in the near future. Helen responded with a smirk, suggesting that they should make it work as partners. Dishers' expression immediately darkened. In the next instant, he pressed the orb in his hand, activating the linked orb embedded within Helen's brain. A wave of unbearable agony surged through Helen's body, forcing him to collapse onto the ground. Dishers coldly corrected him, declaring that their relationship was not one of partnership but one of master and slave. The dark knights and dark magicians felt a grim sense of satisfaction, believing that Helen deserved such treatment. Still trembling in pain, Helen forced out a weak remark, attempting to mask his suffering by saying that he had not realized Dishers took pleasure in such cruel games. Dishers showed no reaction to his words and emotionlessly ordered everyone to disperse and carry out their assigned tasks. As the scene progressed, the princess appeared and handed Helen a letter. She instructed him to deliver it to her sister. Helen realized that she was referring to Elena, the 13th princess of Hilderin, and responded by acknowledging her request and accepting the task.
Later on, Gordon voiced his concern to Deus. He clarified that it was not a matter of distrusting the Demon King, but rather doubt about whether the hero would truly follow orders properly. Deus responded by explaining that Hilan Cargill was not a simple materialist who only sought money. He noted that although it might not seem obvious at first glance, the vulgar greed typical of humans who only chase wealth was not present in Hilan. At the same time, Deus admitted that Hilan was not especially noble either. He concluded that Hilan Cargill did not seek honor, but popularity. Deus observed that Hilan was aggressive in everything he did because he wanted to stand out. He added that if Hilan controlled himself well using the Armani orb, there would be no better spy than him. Gordon reflected silently, realizing that Deus had studied humans to this extent. He felt that he could no longer remain idle. Deus then smirked and imagined the outcome. He stated that if a hero acting as a subordinate of the Demon King were to destroy human society from within, it would be a sight worth seeing. Gordon immediately agreed and affirmed his loyalty to the Demon King. At that moment, a knock echoed at the door, leaving both of them briefly confused. The scene then revealed the princess entering the room. Carrying a plate of cookies, she offered them cookies in a calm and casual manner. Deus took the plate from her, and commented that she had been coming in and out of the hall room whenever she pleased lately. He warned that if he disliked it, he would send her to the underground prison for an entire month. The princess responded confidently, insisting that he try them first. Deus looked at the cookies, and remarked that they were nothing more than a simple human dessert. As Deus took a bite of the cookie, his expression changed instantly. He was visibly shocked by the taste and reacted to the unfamiliar flavor. The princess watched closely, and thought to herself that he had reacted, wondering if he liked her cookies, just like others did. A faint sweat appeared on Deus's face, as he smirked and acknowledged it. He remarked that for a human dessert, it was decent. The princess was stunned internally, realizing that he had withstood it. Deus then pointed out that medicinal herbs had been mixed into the cookie. He noted that the flavor was dangerous. The princess openly admitted it, saying she knew he would notice immediately. Deus connected her action to the reward he had previously given her, and concluded that she clearly wanted something specific in return. The princess chuckled and confirmed that this was indeed the case. Deus remained silent, his confusion obvious. The narration then shifted forward in time. After arriving at Molten Walk, they immediately departed for Hilderan through the teleport circle, and Granada restored discipline soon after. The scene moved to the Scarlet Hawk mercenaries' headquarters, where all of Granada's subordinates returned beaten and battered. Granada, burning with anger, questioned how they had all fled during the first avalanche and left their captain behind. He accused them of abandoning him over something they did not even bother to face. One mercenary, his face swollen and tearful, tried to explain. He insisted it was not like that, and begged Granada to listen. He described Era Ergust as a place where even heroes had fallen and questioned how mid-rank mercenaries like them were supposed to endure it. He claimed they had no other choice if they wanted to survive. Granada responded with fury, beating the man as he shouted that survival did not justify abandoning their captain. Just then someone called out to Granada, causing him to turn around. Standing before him was a blonde-haired female knight. She introduced herself as Kaid, declaring that she was a hero. She explained that due to unavoidable circumstances, she had been unable to join the hero's expedition from the beginning, but had now come to seize the opportunity to participate. Despite her late arrival, she asked for permission to join the hero's expedition. Granada responded with visible confusion, questioning her reason for coming, and expressing his disbelief at seeing a hero appear in that place. At the same time, some of Granada's subordinates, already intoxicated and enjoying themselves, began joking around. They pointed out that Kaid had been the one who paid for their drinks, while their captain was absent, and casually suggested continuing to drink more. Granada immediately silenced them by striking them again, and ordering them to be quiet. He then acknowledged Kaid's generosity in paying for their drinks, but informed her that the hero's expedition had already ended. Hearing this, Kaid was left visibly stunned. Granada continued explaining, stating that Hillen Cargill and the others had already departed from Holton Walk. Kaid reacted with shock and disbelief. Unable to accept the situation, she apologized for her bold request, and asked him to tell her everything that had happened, expressing her desire to hear about the expedition's failure. Internally, Granada resolved that he would only reveal the information that the Demon King had permitted him to share. The scene then shifted to the two of them sitting together inside a restaurant. Granada began recounting the events in detail, explaining everything that had transpired. After listening carefully, Kaid handed him several gold coins, while showing clear disbelief. She realized that the Demon King's tower had not actually been located at the summit. With that realization, she concluded that there was no longer any reason for her to remain there. She expressed her gratitude to Granada for taking the time to share the information with her, and stated that the gold was a gift in appreciation of his help. After conveying her thanks, she stood up and left. After her departure, Granada's subordinates spoke dismissively, describing her as an inexperienced hero who lacked understanding of the world. They remarked that it would not be surprising if she were eventually betrayed. He then silently watched the knights as they departed, carefully observing everything that had taken place. The scene shifted to Holt Walk. Inside a quiet and deserted alley, Kaid arrived and announced that it was time to return, explaining that the princess's fiancé was waiting. In response, the princess firmly rejected the suggestion, expressing her refusal to return, and declaring her determination to live as a hero instead. Granada secretly observed the entire exchange from his hiding place. Driven purely by curiosity, Granada noticed the shadowy figures moving silently as they walked. Their faces were concealed behind masks, making it impossible to read their expressions. He realized that the hero in question was actually the princess herself. He understood that matters concerning the kingdom were not something he should interfere with. At that moment, a knight suddenly appeared and stopped Granada, pressing a sword against his throat. Granada immediately began sweating as fear and tension overtook him. The knight demanded that he reveal his identity, accusing him of spying. The knight further pointed out that Granada was using suspicious magic. Panicking internally, Granada realized that the item in his possession was a magical artifact given to him by the Demon King. He understood that if he were captured, his identity as the Demon King's subordinate would inevitably be exposed. The knight's expression grew colder and more menacing as he concluded that Granada was a spy from another realm. With that judgment, the knight declared his intention to execute him. Overwhelmed by fear, Granada thought of the Demon King. He realized that he had chosen the wrong place to hide. His thoughts raced frantically as he struggled to determine what action he should take next. Granada was suddenly spotted by a knight, and the instant their eyes met, he immediately turned and ran. He sprinted toward the palace entrance, as loud shouts erupted behind him. The knights raised their voices in alarm, shouting that an assassin had appeared, their cries echoing throughout the area, as they warned each other not to let him escape. Shock spread rapidly as the possibility that he might truly be an assassin became real. However, the knights did not hesitate. They urgently instructed the princess to step back, quickly surrounding her, and forming a protective barrier with their bodies. Granada panicked internally, realizing that hesitation would only lead to his capture or death. Even if his identity were exposed at this moment, he had no other choice. At that instant, the knights released a barrage of arrows toward him, pushing the situation beyond the point of return. Just as the arrows flew toward him, the Demon King suddenly appeared. He casually remarked that he had been wondering why things were taking so long. In the next instant, the arrows aimed at Granada shattered in midair, effortlessly destroyed by the Demon King's overwhelming power. Granada was left completely stunned by what he had just witnessed. Unable to fully comprehend the scene before him, Granada watched as the Demon King spread his wings and rose into the air. A flame of magic calmly formed in the Demon King's hand as he casually commented that Granada must have been wasting time playing around in a place like that. The Demon King dismissed the entire matter lightly, casually remarking that there was no need to make such a fuss over wounds that could heal easily. Hearing this dismissive attitude, Granada reacted with visible frustration, expressing through his tone and demeanor that he was taking the situation far more seriously. Panic spread among the knights as they shouted in unison, reacting as if an unimaginable enemy had descended upon them. They immediately assumed that the Demon King had come for the princess and believed he intended to abduct her as part of some dark sacrifice. She urged the knights not to hesitate and declared that this was their opportunity to capture the Demon King. She ordered them to attack without concern for her well-being. The Demon King turned his gaze toward her, showing a brief hint of surprise as he realized something he had not previously known. The knights reacted with disbelief, shouting angrily as they rejected what they were seeing. Confusion spread among them as they questioned why the Demon King would appear in such a place. The Demon King remained calm, explaining that his presence there was merely coincidental, as he had been running an errand nearby, transitioning smoothly to an earlier point in time. Inside a quiet tower, the Demon King was shown sitting calmly while listening to the princess. She expressed her request, stating her desire to obtain senile powder. The Demon King immediately understood the meaning behind her request. He recognized that senile powder was a substance used to assist in forming contracts with spirits. The princess confirmed this understanding with a gentle smile, making her intentions clear. She then began recounting a story from hundreds of years ago. Long ago, an elf named Sel had returned to the human kingdom, where the king gave her a specific command. He had wished for humans to be able to form contracts with spirits more easily, and so Sel was ordered to develop a substance that could aid in that process. Through long years of effort and research, the substance later known as senile powder was eventually created. The Demon King shifted his focus back to the princess herself, calmly pointing out that based on her natural talent alone, she did not actually require senile powder. The princess responded with a faintly saddened expression, conveying that he was overestimating her abilities. She explained that, as he already knew, the tower contained very little mana, and without senile powder, her spirits would struggle to function properly. The Demon King continued, revealing that he himself had been considering forming a contract with a new spirit, specifically one of a higher level. Hearing this, the princess became visibly flustered. She turned her face away and pouted slightly in embarrassment. Her fire spirit and water spirit mimicked her reaction perfectly, reflecting her emotions. After a brief moment of silence, recalling memories from a previous life involving Ernan, she remembered that at the age of 27, she had formed a contract with a high-level spirit, an event that had shaken the entire continent and thrown it into chaos. Forming a contract with a higher-level spirit was something only a few humans had ever achieved, yet now it was happening 7 years earlier than expected. She had intended it to be a surprise. The Demon King casually finished his cookie, expressing that he had eaten well before standing and leaving. The scene returned to the present. Daius raised his hand, forming a dense and overwhelming mana flame. He expressed his intention to finish everything quickly due to his own circumstances. The Night Princess froze in shock. Without hesitation, Daius released the flame. A massive explosion instantly engulfed the battlefield. When the destruction cleared, everything had been annihilated. Yet the Night Princess remained standing. A powerful green aura flowed from her body. The Demon King stared at her in surprise. Ignoring the Knight's warnings, she charged forward and attacked. She declared that a warrior's aura could destroy demons and expressed that warriors were the natural enemies of the Demon King. She rejected her life in the palace, declaring the battlefield as her true place. She unleashed Jesbine's highest swordsmanship, the Crescent Slash. The attack detonated the air and surged toward the Demon King. As she fought, she reflected on her past. She had been treated as insignificant, someone easily discarded for political gain. Despite that, she endured brutal training to be acknowledged as a warrior. She believed defeating the Demon King would finally earn her recognition and freedom. With that resolve, she risked everything. In response, the Demon King calmly gathered aura and instantly shattered her sword. She froze in shock as the fragments scattered. A dark red aura erupted from his body as he rose into the air, completely dominating the battlefield. His presence overwhelmed her, filling her with fear. He mockingly expressed that someone who was both a princess and a warrior could be useful. Fear consumed her. The knights immediately rushed forward, placing themselves between her and the Demon King. The Demon King released another massive explosion. His aura engulfed everything. Minutes later, silence remained. The battlefield was completely destroyed. The ground was torn apart, and knights lay motionless. Two healers soon arrived. Seeing the destruction, they immediately realized a demon was responsible. They found an injured knight, and desperately tried to keep him conscious. With his remaining strength, he mentioned the princess and the Demon King. The healers froze in shock. The scene then shifted to the dungeon of the Tower of Burge. In the dungeon, the Demon King brought the unconscious warrior princess. Her body was covered in bruises and wounds from the battle. Another princess examined her carefully and wondered if she was Senial. The Demon King corrected her, stating that she was Princess Cuddy Jespine, the 9th princess. He declared that she would now live on the 4th floor of the tower, and instructed that she be treated properly, concluding that she would be useful if raised well. The princess agreed, but asked why another princess had been brought. The Demon King casually explained that he found her along the way and picked her up, adding that kidnapping royalty helped him gain magi points. When the princess asked what magi points meant, the Demon King immediately realized he had nearly revealed a secret. He denied it and claimed she had misheard him. He then changed the subject and stated that he would bring her Senial powder. As he left, he internally reprimanded himself, reminding himself that he was the Demon King and she was only a prisoner. Soon after, news spread across the continent that the 9th princess of the Jespine Empire had been kidnapped. The scene shifted to the Hero Guild headquarters. Hillen stood at the center while the heroes questioned him. One hero confirmed that Hillen was telling the truth. Hillen lowered his head and admitted his failure to locate the Demon King's tower, accepting responsibility. Another hero reassured him, expressing that no warrior should be blamed for such an outcome, since doing so would discourage future leaders. Hillen felt relieved and expressed his gratitude. At that moment, new information arrived. A hero reported that during the retreat, the Demon King had kidnapped the 9th princess. The Jespine Empire had requested the raising of the warrior's banner. Hillen spoke, expressing regret and proposing a reconnaissance mission instead of immediate war. He reasoned that a truly powerful Demon King would not hide, and secrecy suggested weakness. The heroes agreed with his logic and supported his proposal. A senior hero then declared that full-scale war would be suspended until the tower's location was confirmed. Hillen bowed and silently wondered if this outcome had been part of the Demon King's plan, realizing he had successfully bought time. The scene returned to the Demon King, who reviewed Hillen's report and instructed him to continue observing. He admitted to himself that without Hillen's actions, the warriors would have already launched an attack. He considered recruiting them one of his best decisions. Outside, Hillen and Granada used their influence to delay the warriors further. Meanwhile, the Demon King continued his plans, focusing on accumulating demonic points through kidnapping royalty. His resources steadily increased. He also prepared to use the powerful Armanis beads as an energy source. The dwarves reinforced the tower, making it nearly impenetrable. Krutu's power grew through contracts with high-level spirits, including Princess Ernan. The Demon King concluded that even elite warriors would not be able to defeat him. With the tower nearing completion, his thoughts turned to revenge. He aimed to take revenge on the warriors who had killed him before. His target was Amur, the city of magic and engineering. His goal was to seize it without being detected. The scene then shifted to the kingdom of Akan, to the great city of magic and engineering, Amur. On the outskirts of the world's largest magic market stood a small and unremarkable shop known as Jettison's Paradise. Inside, the shopkeeper sat lazily behind the counter, casually flipping through a newspaper. His expression gradually grew dull as boredom overtook him, and he released a weary sigh. While reading, his mind wandered to the latest rumors spreading across the continent. He recalled reading that the 9th princess of Jespine had been kidnapped immediately after the hero expedition ended. He also reflected on the growing anger directed toward the Hero Guild and their continued inaction. The newspaper further reported that a hero named Logir was now being hunted. After absorbing all of this information, the shopkeeper quietly muttered to himself, expressing that these events truly made it feel like the end times were approaching. Suddenly, the bell above the door rang, announcing the arrival of a new customer. The Demon King stepped inside. The seller immediately set aside his newspaper, straightened his posture, and greeted the Demon King with an overly bright and friendly smile. He welcomed him enthusiastically, and asked if there was anything specific he was searching for. The Demon King, however, paid little attention to the seller's exaggerated enthusiasm. His gaze swept across the dusty and run-down shop with clear disinterest. He finally spoke, stating that he was looking for some powder and asking whether it was available. In his thoughts, he recalled that the princess had personally asked him to bring this powder for her. Upon hearing the request, the shopkeeper's mood shifted instantly to excitement. His eyes sparkled as he proudly declared that they absolutely had it in stock. He began speaking with excessive cheer. The narration then further explained the setting. The kingdom of Akan was known as the sacred land of magic engineering, attracting heroes, mages, and alchemists from all across the world. Because of this, famous shops were constantly filled with powerful individuals. Even when demonic energy was carefully concealed, the risk of being detected in such crowded places remained high. This was precisely why Demius had deliberately chosen this quiet and isolated shop with almost no customers. The shopkeeper then eagerly held up 2 glass vials filled with sin powder. Laughing loudly, he cheerfully declared that the Demon King was extremely fortunate today. He then picked up one of the vials and examined it carefully. He observed that sin powder was normally green, and questioned why this one was purple instead. The shopkeeper laughed and explained that this was a newly developed version. Lowering his voice, he revealed that it had been secretly created inside the Mage Tower, and had not yet been officially released. The seller continued his excited explanation, emphasizing that this new sin powder had not yet entered the public market. In his thoughts, he assumed that the man before him must be a wealthy noble, since no ordinary person would travel all the way to such a remote and shabby shop. The Demon King immediately saw through the seller's intentions. His expression darkened as he realized that the seller understood he had limited options and was deliberately attempting to extort him. Anger surged within him, and for a brief moment he considered killing the seller on the spot. However, before he could act on that thought, the bell above the shop door rang once again. The seller instantly shifted his attention away from the Demon King and turned to greet the new arrivals with cheerful enthusiasm. A group of people stepped inside, and one of them quietly whispered to another, expressing disbelief and questioning why they were beginning their search in such a shabby place. The Demon King looked toward the entrance and froze in shock. He immediately recognized the newcomers as Princess Louise and her knights. One of the knights calmly remarked to Louise, expressing his belief that if the man named Logger possessed any sense, he would avoid appearing in places that attracted attention. Louise, however, displayed clear irritation. She openly complained, expressing frustration at being forced to enter such a filthy place because of him. Hearing this, unease grew within the Demon King as he was the one responsible for kidnapping Logger. One of the knights then approached the seller and politely explained that they were searching for someone. Meanwhile, the Demon King carefully observed Louise. He studied her sharp temperament, her rough tone, and most notably, her distinctive twin tails. He became certain that she was Louise Werft. At the same time, he reassured himself internally, reminding himself that she would not recognize him since he had used a magic item to conceal his identity during their previous encounter. The seller laughed awkwardly, and told the knight that he understood they were searching for someone. Then, in a strange and absurd claim, he stated that he suffered from a peculiar condition, explaining that his memory would fail him if he did not sell anything first. The knight reacted with visible confusion and shock at such a bizarre statement. Louise immediately responded with fury, expressing her anger through harsh insults directed at the seller. In the next instant, she stepped forward and pressed her sword dangerously close to his neck. He screamed in panic, reminding them that murder was forbidden in the royal capital and begging desperately for his life. Trembling uncontrollably, he pleaded that if they were going to threaten him, they should at least buy something first. Staring at him in disbelief and expressing that he had completely lost his sanity, he expressed his willingness to accept any punishment they chose, as long as they agreed to buy something first. Hearing this, the Demon King remained stunned in silence. Even Louise herself appeared momentarily surprised. She stared at the seller briefly, visibly taken aback by his boldness. Then, unexpectedly, she burst into laughter. Rather than remaining angry, she expressed amusement and commented that the man was surprisingly interesting. Deciding that she was willing to see what he had to offer, seizing this unexpected opportunity, the seller quickly changed his approach. He immediately renamed the sin powder and presented it proudly as arch powder. He confidently claimed that it was an extremely valuable item, particularly useful for dwarven masters. Without hesitation, he declared that its price was 3 gold coins. Watching this unfold, the Demon King felt his anger intensify. His teeth clenched tightly as he silently cursed the seller in his thoughts, realizing that the man had attempted to scam him and was now shamelessly deceiving Louise as well. Yet to his surprise, Louise appeared completely satisfied. She accepted the arch powder without hesitation, expressed her thanks to the seller with a smile, and even offered blessings toward him, before shifting her focus back to her true objective. She then calmly asked whether a dwarf named Logger had recently passed through the shop. The seller shook his head and expressed that it was the first time he had ever heard that name. However, he quickly added that there was a well-known gathering place in Aachen where blacksmiths typically met whenever they visited the kingdom, suggesting that they might find useful information there. She then signaled that it was time to leave, and her knight immediately acknowledged and followed her decision without hesitation. As she turned toward the door, she quietly expressed her disgust, remarking that the seller's behavior had been utterly shameful. Once Louise and her knights exited the shop, the tension finally dissipated. After the door closed, he raised an eyebrow and addressed the seller with a faint smirk, expressing his admiration for the seller's boldness in successfully selling worthless powder for 3 gold coins. The seller responded with a proud grin as he pocketed the coins, clearly satisfied with his success. He admits he stayed silent because Louise looked like a noble who would easily pay 3 gold and would not kill him over such a small amount. Smirking, he adds that for 10 gold, he could even share a secret. The Demon King internally calls him a scammer, but finds his boldness amusing. Leaning closer, he tells him to go to the Golden Moon Merchant Guild and say he was sent by the mountain, assuring he will be accepted. The seller is confused and questions why someone would associate with a nearly bankrupt guild. The Demon King smirks and reveals the truth. The woman he scammed was Louise Werft. The seller freezes. His hands tremble, the vials fall and shatter, and his face turns pale in terror. He realizes he scammed the infamous Mad Dog Princess. Panicking, he demands to know what the Demon King wants. The Demon King calmly places 1 gold coin on the counter and repeats his answer. Join the Golden Moon Merchant Guild, where the monthly salary is 1 gold. Smirking, he warns that if he refuses, he will bring Louise back. Terrified, the seller begs for his life. But suddenly, his fear vanishes, replaced by a mocking grin. He angrily orders the Demon King to leave, daring him to bring Louise back, and scoffing at the idea. The Demon King leaves without another word, muttering that things will go as the seller wishes. He goes straight to Louise and tells her everything. Hearing she was scammed, Louise explodes in fury and storms back to the shop. Inside, the seller sees Louise return and breaks completely. Outside, the Demon King examines the vial and realizes even the poorest shops sell proper sin powder, silently cursing the seller's shameless greed. Louise approaches and thanks him sincerely, saying she recovered her money because of him. He politely asks what she did to the seller. She clenches her fist and admits she could only teach him a small lesson in a foreign country, muttering that she should have ripped his heart out. One knight tries calming her, surprised at her rage. The Demon King grows uneasy, reminded how dangerous and eccentric she is. He quickly changes the subject and asks about Lager. Louise immediately brightens and eagerly confirms he is a blacksmith, asking if he knows him. The Demon King shows a necklace and asks if it belongs to Lager. The knight instantly recognizes it as Lager's early work. The Demon King fabricates a story, claiming he met Lager 2 months ago in Ormuth, helped him while starving, and received the necklace in gratitude. Louise grips the necklace tightly, trembling with emotion. She admits she owes him again, and wishes she could host him properly, making the Demon King uneasy. She hands him an emblem, saying it can be exchanged for the best equipment in the Dwarven Kingdom. He accepts it calmly. Louise and her knights leave. One knight asks her next move. She declares she will request reinforcements, and vows she will not let Lager escape. As they disappear, the Demon King's thoughts turn inward. One word echoes in his mind: the heart. Memories resurface. After regression, he realizes he forgot a crucial event. Draxon discovered the heart of a mystic beast. After absorbing it, Draxon gained overwhelming power. A realization settles in. That power was the only thing Demon King truly desired. Now reborn as a new Demon King, Demon King understands his current limitations. Dimensional interference is still heavily affecting him, restricting his true strength. If he were to fight Louise one-on-one under these conditions, especially with Louise being fully equipped with high gear, Demon King knows the outcome would be uncertain. At best, he would barely manage to win. That would not be enough to take revenge on the heroes, and to survive in this dimension. Demon King comes to a decisive conclusion. He will send Louise to Ormuth, to the place where the Tower of Beasts stands. Their two monsters will inevitably clash. The Mad Dog Louise and the Demon King of Beast Draxon. While those to tear each other apart in brutal conflict, Demon Kings will remain in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment. And when the battle ends, he will claim the prize for himself. Deep within the Rainforest Kingdom, the scene shifts once again. The dwarf princess pushes through the dense jungle as her armor brushes against thick vines while her companions follow closely behind. One of the dwarves rushes toward her urgently and reports that airborne officers have delivered an ultimatum. An anonymous source demands that they withdraw immediately. Yet she does not slow down, and her eyes burn with determination as she answers firmly that she still has not found him. Continuing deeper into the dark forest without any intention of turning back, cold sweat rolls down the dwarf princess's face while her subordinate urges her again, warning that they must inspect only the areas permitted by the anonymous order. Yet she clenches her teeth as anger overpowers her hesitation, and she declares that there are still places she has not searched. Then her gaze suddenly locks onto Beast Mountain standing in the distance, and she freezes for a moment in disbelief. Even the domain of the Beast King is considered forbidden and dangerously beyond reason. A dwarf calls out desperately to stop her, but she continues walking forward without hesitation, confidently declaring that it will be fine because no one can touch her. Sweat soaks through her armor, yet excitement burns brightly in her eyes as she laughs sharply and declares that someone dared to challenge her, reminding everyone that they are part of the royal family, and the entire nation wields dwarven weapons crafted by their kingdom. If anyone wants war, then they will receive war. Beside her, the small doll companion whispers nervously and wonders what if there were never any loggers in this forest? What if the man they trusted fooled them? The princess immediately shoots a sharp glare toward the doll and coldly admits that such a possibility exists, but warns it to stay quiet or she will knock its head off first. Without waiting for any response, she marches forward again, while while glancing toward the distant tower and mutters that the Demon King's situation is becoming serious. Inside the tower, the Wolf Demon King slowly lifts his head as a demon girl appears before him and bows respectfully, while reporting that the dwarf princess is approaching Beast Mountain. His eyes widen in shock and he demands to know why that reckless princess has come here. Anger twists across his face as he suspects she may be trying to interfere with the heart of reincarnation. The chamber guarding that power is protected with absolute security, and even the pure mana sealed within the magma core cannot be altered. Even 10,000 spirits combined would be unable to move it. He mutters in frustration that the aggravation work is already in its final stage, and wonders why trouble appears now of all times. Suddenly realization strikes him like lightning, and he roars an order to stop her immediately and prevent the princess from approaching, but quickly adds another command that she must not be killed, and no one should be seriously injured. The demon servant hesitates and admits that such an order will be difficult to accomplish. Back in the forest, the princess suddenly halts as a towering muscular figure appears before her and blocks the path completely. His presence overwhelming and his calm voice carrying a deadly edge as he questions whether she has lost her mind and come here seeking death. The princess narrows her eyes proudly and refuses to be intimidated, declaring that the pride of the dwarves will never bend to threats. The man replies that this is the territory of the Demon King, and entry here is strictly prohibited, gripping his sword as he reminds her that someone should have warned her, adding with a dark chuckle that there is always the risk of being killed by demons in a place like this. The man is revealed to be Max, the Prince of Ormus, and orders him to move aside, demanding that he should not return until he finds the missing logo. Max's expression twists with irritation as he mutters that dwarves truly lack intelligence, remembering the full-scale war from 1 year earlier near the kingdom of Jasper, which borders the Demon King's castle. Ignoring the worried cries of her subordinates, she keeps her eyes locked on Max alone. Max begins speaking about how things work in his country, but she cuts him off with a sneer, declaring she's heard enough. The tension exploding as both prepare to strike, and the forest trembles under their power. Suddenly several men emerge from the shadows, shouting that it's their turn to claim the rewards. Max tightens his grip and orders them to kill everyone. Soldiers and hunting hounds surround the princess, cutting off every escape, while Max declares they will all die for the prosperity of Ormus. Rage surges from the princess as she raises her massive axe and shouts at them for daring to challenge her. In the distance, thunderous demonic gallops echo. Inside the tower, the Wolf Demon King roars in disbelief, realizing Ormus' forces intend to kill the princess and frame him, triggering a full-scale offensive like 200 years ago. Monstrous demons are dispatched instantly, as he grimly resolves the princess must survive. Back in the forest, blood and violent mana stain the battlefield, as Max's allies cut down dwarves with precision, chaos reigning until a golden shield flares around the princess. She shouts for her soldiers to be released while a wounded dwarf pleads that the enemy advantage is overwhelming and they cannot win head-on, urging her to escape while they clear a path. Her teeth clench, fury burning as she declares she'll smash everything herself, ignoring the doll's plea to calm down. Max raises his weapon, mana blazing, sneering that she hides behind a shield like a turtle. Suddenly violent purple energy explodes before him, blinding and overwhelming. He freezes in shock, wondering if the Beast King's subordinate has arrived. A dark purple aura intensifies above them, and a cold voice echoes declaring the Ormus attack was never part of the plan, and humans are unpredictable. Max's eyes widen as he realizes the being before him is no mere beast or demon. At the same moment, both Max and the princess tremble under the Demon King's suffocating presence. Pierce Doss appears with a mocking smile and coldly orders the Princess of Ormus to die, activating his equipment magic tool with an unyielding expression. Someone shouts that high-level demons have appeared. At the same time, the Demon King releases a monstrous aura, the suffocating energy pressing down like a physical force, wrapping around Max and binding him completely. He struggles in shock, shouting in confusion as the crushing pressure freezes him in place. In that exact moment, Princess Louise Vert flashes forward with unstoppable speed, closing the distance in the blink of an eye, ready to strike. Some of Max's soldiers gather their courage and angrily shout that she dared to attack the prince and must pay for it. Yet even as they speak, they can feel the terrifying power radiating from her body, the pressure alone making it hard for them to stand their ground. Louise's expression hardens as she fires back that they came here to kill her first, and now she will send them to their prince as well. At that moment, the dwarf soldiers arrive and immediately form a defensive shield around the princess, while others rush forward to launch counterattacks. The forest erupts into chaos as explosions shake the trees and violent shockwaves rip across the battlefield. Watching everything from a distance with calm, unreadable eyes, the Demon King quietly remarks that Louise will not die here, deciding that the time has finally come to set his true plan into motion, as his gaze slowly rises toward the towering beast tower ahead. As the scene shifts to the tower, an immense surge of energy radiates from it, thick and overwhelming as if the very air itself is trembling. Inside the chamber, the Beast King rages as he realizes another demon lord has sent demons into his territory, his anger growing as he understands that the timing is far too perfect while the princess and Ormuth forces are clashing outside. Determined to see the situation for himself, the Beast King rushes to the battlefield and immediately demands to know what happened to the dwarf princess and the invading demon. His soldiers nervously explain that by the time they arrived, the princess was already surrounded by Ormuth troops, a report that only worsens his anger as a troubling thought enters his mind, that the same great war from 200 years ago might begin again. But when the scene shifts back to the battlefield, the truth becomes clear. Princess Louise is already cutting down every enemy before her in a brutal and unstoppable assault. Not a single soldier able to stand against her, while even her own troops shout desperately for her to stop before the battle turns into pure slaughter. Back with the Beast King, the soldier lowers his head and finishes the report saying the princess solved everything herself, and they were unable to help. Hearing this, the Beast King snaps in irritation and tells them not to confuse him like idiots. In his anger, the Beast King strikes the soldier. The man instantly drops to his knees and bows repeatedly, while apologizing again and again, his entire body trembling beneath the overwhelming fury. Soon more soldiers arrive accompanied by several powerful beasts. One of them hesitates before nervously reporting that Prince Max was killed by the dwarf princess. Another soldier quickly asks what should be done with the remaining Ormus warriors, clearly waiting for the Beast King's permission before taking any action. The Beast King remains silent for a moment, his expression dark and calculating, as he carefully considers the situation in his mind. Finally, the Beast King turns toward his soldiers and gives a firm order to send them alive, explaining that these men must provide their statements properly, so he will not be falsely accused. Then he looks toward the rest of his troops and sharply asks whether they have found the demon who invaded his territory. The soldiers hesitate before answering that they are still searching, their voices trailing off awkwardly. Hearing this, the Beast King grabs his head in frustration and calls them pathetic, saying that not only their heads but even their noses are useless. His anger burns fiercely, but soon his expression shifts into deeper thought. If it is a high demon that specializes in stealth, then it is no surprise these fools cannot detect it. He narrows his eyes and mutters that it has been a long time since he has faced a situation like this. Then he activates a technique known as sensory super-maximization, a powerful method that heightens the senses by concentrating magic directly into the sensory organs. By mastering this technique, even the faintest traces of stealth magic can be detected. After a moment he senses it, faint traces of an unfamiliar demon lingering in the area. His expression darkens as a thought crosses his mind that perhaps that bastard had chased the dwarf princess. Immediately he turns to his soldiers and demands to know which direction the dwarf princess ran. One soldier quickly points and answers that she went that way, but before the sentence can even be finished, the Beast King vanishes from the spot and rushes forward with incredible speed, his furious voice roaring through the forest as he curses the Demon King. In that instant, the Beast King suddenly understands everything, his eyes widening as the truth pieces itself together inside his mind. It was all about the dwarf princess and Prince Ormus. Even exposing the magic was part of the plan. Everything was meant to lure him away from the volcano. Rage surges through him like wildfire as his aura erupts violently, and he races toward the mountain, the ground cracking beneath his steps while the wind howls around him as he moves. The scene shifts deep within the Beast King's territory, inside a massive cave hidden near the volcano. Numerous beast warriors guard the area heavily, while bear demons carry materials back and forth with urgency and discipline. The entire place feels like a secret operation moving in perfect coordination. Then the view moves deeper into the cave, where the Demon King himself has already arrived at the hidden location. Standing before a massive pool of extraordinary lava while observing it carefully, the molten flow glows unnaturally as it radiates a strange and powerful energy. He quietly mutters that this is no ordinary lava, and that the energy of return is being transmitted there. No matter how tough Draxon was, it would have been impossible for him to jump into it, meaning the lava must have been secretly constructed to drain it, though he calmly adds that he does not mind at all. As he speaks, dark energy begins rising around his body while mysterious abilities awaken within him. He calmly explains that the black flame dragon's scales are capable of moving even within lava. Just then, someone senses his presence. A tiger demon, sharp and alert, instantly locks onto him and launches a full-force attack without hesitation, his weapon infused with all his strength as he strikes with deadly intent. Yet the Demon King simply raises one hand and stops the attack effortlessly, the weapon unable to move forward even a single inch. Without even looking troubled, the Demon King calmly remarks that at such a distance it was inevitable. A high demon would eventually discover him. The tiger demon bares his fangs and angrily shouts for him to stop right there. But before he can react further, the Demon King coldly tells him that he should come with him. With those words, he drags the tiger demon along and leaps straight into the massive pool of lava. As they plunge into the burning molten depths, the tiger demon's screams echo throughout the cavern, while his body is instantly destroyed by the intense heat without leaving a single trace behind. Yet the Demon King remains completely unaffected, as the black dragon scales covering his body protect him from the devastating heat, the molten fire sliding across his body as though it were nothing, while he continues descending deeper into the blazing depths. He often wondered what kind of recovery ability he had truly obtained, a faint smile appearing on his face as the memory returns. Then far below within the depths, something finally appears, a phoenix whose presence radiates immense power even within the lava itself. The Demon King recalls that during his time as a Demon King cadet, the existence of the phoenix had been confirmed across multiple dimensions, the phoenix capable of transcending dimensions ranging from divine beings to entities that rule their own realms as ultimate destroyers, the scale of its power differing greatly depending on its form. However, there was one thing all records shared in common. Every demon lord who completely absorbed a phoenix became powerful enough to have their name engraved in the history of the demon world. A quiet satisfaction appears on the Demon King's face, as he softly thanks Draxen in his mind, saying that because Draxen absorbed the phoenix in the previous life, he is now able to stand here. The one power he always envied finally within reach, and in this life he will make sure to write his own legend with it. The Demon King slowly stretches his hand forward, and an overwhelmingly powerful light burst from his palm. The radiance so intense that it illuminates the sky and the surrounding mountains even from far away. Seeing the blinding light in the distance, the Beast King's expression twists with shock and rage, as he roars in fury while demanding to know who discovered his phoenix, his mind racing through possibilities as he briefly considers Deus, but quickly rejects the thought because that man would never move without a clear benefit. In the next instant he arrives at the entrance of the cave, where the guards stammer nervously as they try to report the appearance of a demon. But the Beast King pushes past them without hesitation and orders everyone to stay back while he strides deeper inside, muttering to himself that Ugar lacks the intelligence to plan something like this, and Rena from the Snow Demon tribe could not approach the Phoenix because of its fire attribute. Leaving only one possible explanation, he suddenly turns toward his soldiers and sharply demands whether they are safe. One soldier hurriedly explains that earlier the tiger demon suddenly jumped into the lava. The Beast King immediately snaps in disbelief, saying that such a thing is impossible, yet the trembling soldier continues and explains that the tiger claimed he was going to steal it. At that moment someone shouts that the Demon King is inside, and that it is dangerous, an immense light pouring outward from deep within the cave, growing brighter with every passing second as its glow spreads far beyond the cavern and becomes visible even from great distances. From afar several figures witness the astonishing sight: Princess Louise, Merchant Granada, Cargill, and Princess Elena, standing beside their soldiers as they watch the radiant eruption in stunned silence. Meanwhile, the Beast King's fury reaches its absolute peak as he clenches his fist and his aura explodes violently around him, roaring with uncontrollable rage that he will kill the intruder. And within the blazing depths the phoenix finally reveals itself.
Deep within a dense forest, a sharp, unnatural sound echoed briefly before fading, leaving silence. On the forest floor lay Deus, motionless, abandoned by life. Minutes passed before his eyelids trembled and opened, confusion clouding his gaze as he stared at the tangled canopy above, unsure where he was or how he had arrived. Around him, animals had gathered, wolves in the shadows, small creatures peeking from bushes, birds perched above. None attacked, they simply watched the stranger in their territory. Ignoring them, Deus slowly pushed himself up, heavy and disoriented, searching his memory. Then it hit him: the phoenix. His plan had been simple: kill it, store it in his subspace, and return to his tower. But the volcano erupted, its force hurling him across the sky before he crashed in this forest. Walking through the trees, he reached a narrow stream and froze at his reflection. His appearance had completely changed. The face staring back was unfamiliar. Far away in Ormus, Princess Louise reported to the king about the battle. Ormus warriors had intervened bravely, but the king's son had died. Consumed by grief and rage, the king immediately ordered a massive expedition. The Beast Demon King must be defeated. Back in the forest, Deus received a holographic call from Hillen. Shock crossed Hillen's face at Deus's new appearance, but Deus calmly confirmed his identity. Hillen reported that nearly 500 participants, including 200 recognized heroes, would attack the Tower of Beast, led by the 10-star battle mage Rosal Charnt and Vice Commander Balaf Dislord. Not all groups agreed with killing the Demon King. Some wanted him alive for the tower's rare resources. Deus quickly decided Hillen would join the expedition and personally kill the Beast Demon King when the opportunity arose, boosting his reputation among humans. Soon after, Gordon reported that Draxen had summoned several Demon Kings, including Belvec and Reyna, to the Tower of Beast. Recognizing the urgency, Deus transformed into his demon form and took to the sky. The Phoenix's mana flared violently, igniting his wings. He shot through the sky like a burning comet, crashing into the barrier surrounding his tower but stabilizing safely. As Deus confirmed his safety, Gordon prepared a portal to the Tower of Beast. Heroes gathered from across regions. Rosal drew admiration as she boldly declared she would defeat the Beast Demon King, while Hillen internally resolved the victory would ultimately belong to him. Deus, Gordon, and Jason arrived at the tower's top level, where Draxen awaited. Calmly acknowledging them, Draxen led them into the meeting chamber. Deus noted that arriving late would have been unwise. Once everyone gathered, Belvec questioned the urgency. Jason casually remarked on the assembling hero forces, and Draxen revealed the truth. One Demon King had secretly sent an acetate demon into his territory. That intruder had stolen the corpse of the Phoenix that Draxen had been preparing to absorb. Even worse, the same culprit had caused the death of the second Prince of Ormus, which had triggered the current hero expedition. The other Demon Kings silently considered his words. Some wondered whether Draxon had been secretly hiding a phoenix all along. Others believed stealing such a powerful spirit beast was reckless. However, provoking the kingdom of Ormus into launching such a massive expedition clearly suggested that someone intended to destroy Draxon. Continuing his explanation, Draxon suggested that the same mysterious enemy might also be responsible for the death of the dwarf princes. If that were true, the real objective might be to ignite a massive war across the entire continent. Looking around the chamber, Draxon declared that someone present might be trying to eliminate him. But if that was the plan, he warned that he would not fall alone. Filled with anger, he swore that he would uncover the traitor responsible. To achieve that, he announced that he would purchase the black box key. The black box installed inside the tower was a special device capable of recording the movements and actions of demon kings. It had originally been created to analyze past operations and help plan future invasions more effectively. However, many demon kings who followed strict demonic traditions believed such devices were unnecessary. Using the system required an enormous number of demon energy points, and because the device would disappear if the tower collapsed, most demon kings had stopped paying attention to it entirely. But Draxon intended to use it. When Deus heard this announcement, a troubling thought crossed his mind. The black box was something he had never considered before. If Draxon opened the black box inside his tower, the truth would be impossible to hide. Draxon continued explaining that activating the device was not something he could do alone. The system required the approval of the demon king who controlled the tower where it was installed. Without that authorization, the black box would remain sealed. He looked around at the other rulers and asked each demon king present to grant him permission to open the black box in his domain. His reasoning was simple. If the one responsible for the chaos was hiding among them, that person would likely refuse the request. For a moment, the chamber fell silent. Deus listened carefully, feeling a growing sense of unease. The situation had suddenly become far more dangerous than he had expected. If the recordings inside the black box were revealed, the truth might come to light, but the tension in the room quickly dissolved. One by one, the demon kings granted their approval. Even the demon queen gave her authorization without hesitation. None of them opposed the request. Satisfied, Draxon nodded. With everyone's approval secured, the process could begin whenever he decided to activate the device. He announced that once the results were obtained, he would inform them. For now, the meeting was finished. Later, more details about the black box key became known. It was an extremely rare consumable item that could only be used once. Its price was staggering 9,999 demon power points. Only rulers with immense reserves of demonic energy could even consider purchasing it. Because of that overwhelming cost, most demon kings avoided using it altogether. Draxon himself had no intention of buying the key immediately. With the hero expedition preparing to attack his tower, spending such an enormous amount of power right now would be reckless. If he weakened himself before facing the heroes, the consequences could be disastrous. However, he had already decided what he would do afterward. If the hero expedition failed, and the situation returned to normal, he would immediately purchase the black box key. Once he obtained it, he planned to open the black boxes belonging to Deus and Jason. Only then would the traitor's identity be revealed. Meanwhile, after leaving the meeting, Deus and Gordon returned to their own tower. As soon as they arrived, Deus began carefully analyzing the situation. The possibility of the black box being activated weighed heavily on his mind. There was only one solution. Before that moment arrived, Draxon had to be eliminated. With that decision forming in his thoughts, Deus decided to inspect the tower before planning his next move. Gordon informed him that most of the preparations inside the tower had already been completed. Hearing that, Deus suggested they begin their inspection from the lowest level. Together they descended to the first floor of Berg Tower. The sight that greeted them was impossible to ignore. A gigantic magical weapon dominated the entire floor. The structure resembled a colossal cannon, towering like a siege machine built for pure destruction. Standing proudly on top of the massive device was Logger. The moment he saw Deus arrive, his excitement exploded. He began enthusiastically explaining his newest creation. This, he announced proudly, was the weapon forged in the Hell Forge, Hell's Catapult Mark I. His voice overflowed with admiration for his own masterpiece. According to him, the design was both magnificent and elegant. It was without question the greatest creation he had ever produced. As Deus and Gordon turned to leave, Logger continued shouting excitedly behind them, thanking the Demon King repeatedly and promising that the next weapon he created would be even bigger, stronger, and more extraordinary. Leaving the loud inventor behind, Deus and Gordon moved up to the second floor of the tower. There they found Kate Turde standing alone in the training area, practicing her swordsmanship with focused determination. The moment she noticed Deus entering the room, she did not hesitate for even a second. She lunged forward and launched an attack immediately. Her blade moved with impressive speed, cutting through the air toward him. Deus calmly raised his weapon and blocked the strike with almost no effort at all. "Nothing has changed," he remarked quietly, observing her technique. Kate Turd narrowed her eyes as determination filled her gaze. "The real battle begins now," she replied firmly. Without wasting another moment, she activated the Qin combat technique and unleashed a modified attack known as Waxing Moon, breaking the waning moon. The power behind the strike was clearly greater than before, refined through careful practice. Yet even this improved attack failed to trouble Deus. He stopped it just as effortlessly as the first. A faint smirk appeared on his face as he spoke again. "You've improved a little," he admitted, "but you still have a long way to go." K-Turd stared at him in disbelief. She could not understand how her carefully refined technique had been neutralized so easily. Before she could gather herself for another attempt, Deus launched a swift counterattack. His strike landed with controlled precision, hitting just hard enough to nearly knock her unconscious. The brief exchange ended as quickly as it had begun. Deus then turned his attention toward Gordon, curiosity appearing in his voice. He asked why Princess K-Tur had been placed on the second floor. Gordon explained that Princess Ernan was currently conducting a summoning ritual on the fourth floor. To prevent any interference during such a delicate process, he had temporarily moved K-Tur to another level of the tower. Hearing this explanation caused Deus to raise an eyebrow slightly in mild surprise. At that exact moment, the ritual on the fourth floor was already in progress. Inside a large glowing magic circle, Ernan stood with focused concentration, channeling her energy while activating the spirit dust that had been provided earlier by Signal. Drawing upon her magical power, she began reciting the summoning incantation with careful precision. She called upon the great spirit of water, invoking the guardian bound by blood and soul. Her voice echoed softly within the chamber as she spoke the sacred name of Ernan Hilderan, seeking to form a spiritual contract with the ancient being. Moments later, the ritual succeeded. A powerful water spirit manifested within the circle, its presence shimmering with flowing blue energy as it connected directly to Ernan mana. However, the moment the bond was established, a sudden surge of energy flooded through her body. The overwhelming force disrupted her balance, and she began to fall forward. At that exact moment, Deus appeared beside her. Moving with incredible speed, he caught her before she could collapse onto the ground. Supporting her carefully, he smiled faintly. "It seems I arrived just in time," he said, calmly praising her successful ritual. Ernan laughed softly, though she seemed a little embarrassed, and shook her head. She explained that the ritual had succeeded largely because of the spirit dust she had received earlier. But then something completely unexpected happened. In a quiet voice, Ernan suddenly said that she loved the Demon King. The words left her lips before she could stop them. Deus froze in surprise. Ernan immediately panicked. She insisted that she had not meant to say those words, even though the voice had clearly come from her mouth. She claimed she had no control over it at all. After a brief moment of confusion, the truth revealed itself. Those words had not actually been spoken by Ernan. They had come from the newly summoned water spirit. Ernan sighed lightly and remarked that she seemed to have summoned a particularly troublesome spirit. Hearing this, the spirit burst into laughter. Soon afterward, she introduced herself properly. Her name was Nairuniel, a high-ranking water spirit. Her personality quickly became obvious. She loved reading romance novels, especially dramatic stories involving forbidden love. With cheerful enthusiasm, Nairuniel declared that she truly adored the Demon King. She even pointed out that he had clearly noticed Ernan's feelings already, and immediately began asking when the two of them planned to officially become boyfriend and girlfriend. Hearing such outrageous claims left Ernan completely flustered. Her face turned bright red as she demanded to know what kind of nonsense the spirit was talking about. Meanwhile, Nairuniel appeared thoroughly entertained by the entire situation. With a playful smile, she continued teasing Ernan relentlessly. She urged the princess to admit the rumors that were apparently spreading throughout the spirit realm. According to those whispers, the innocent demon princess had already entered a romantic relationship. To Nairuniel, the situation was simply too amusing to ignore. She leaned further into the topic, asking when the supposed relationship had begun. In flustered frustration, she asked Nairuniel to return to her own domain, hoping the spirit would leave and end the humiliating teasing, but Nairuniel had no intention of leaving so soon. Deus stepped forward and interrupted. His expression remained calm, yet his voice carried a serious tone as he addressed the high-ranking spirit directly. He asked Nairuniel what impression he gave in her eyes. Nairuniel studied him carefully for a moment. Then a slow smile appeared on her face as she answered honestly. To her, he looked like a refined and striking demon king, someone who appeared perfectly suited to stand beside the princess. Maintaining his steady composure, he repeated the question once more. Then, without any warning, he activated his magic. His appearance began to change instantly. His hair shifted into a vivid shade of red, and the energy surrounding him transformed dramatically. Ernan and Nairuniel were both stunned by the sudden shift. The transformation had been so intense that neither of them had expected it. Nairuniel attempted to analyze the sensation carefully. Just moments earlier, his power had felt like a dense cluster of magical energy typical of a demon king, but now it felt entirely different. What she sensed now resembled pure monosign, refined and unlike the aura of any demon lord. Instead, it carried the unmistakable essence of a spirit. At the same time, a blazing aura surrounded Deus as flames of energy radiated outward. Calmly, he explained the purpose behind his transformation. Even a superior spirit like Nairuniel had been deceived by his disguise. If she could be fooled so easily, then the other demon lords and warriors would likely never detect the difference either. A confident smile formed on his face as he reasoned aloud that the Beast Demon King could probably handle matters independently. For the moment, Ernan remained confused, struggling to process everything she had just witnessed. The conversation had shifted so quickly that she could barely follow its meaning when she heard the idea of one demon king eliminating another. The thought unsettled her deeply. Not long after, the scene shifted again. Deus moved swiftly through the sky, flying at tremendous speed with clear determination. While he traveled, a system notification suddenly appeared before him. Gordon's face appeared on the screen. His expression was filled with stress and urgency. He looked completely overwhelmed, even grabbing his own hair in frustration as he shouted loudly. Deus remained calm and asked what had happened. Gordon immediately responded that the situation involved the Demon King. The news surprised Deus briefly, though he quickly regained his composure. Gordon continued speaking in disbelief. He could not understand why a Demon King would attempt to eliminate another. Deus answered without hesitation. He reminded Gordon that he had already stated his intention clearly before. He planned to remove Draxon. That response only increased Gordon's panic. He protested loudly, explaining that such actions violated the long-standing rules among Demon Kings. If the others discovered that rule had been broken, the consequences could become uncontrollable. Deus tightened his jaw slightly as he considered the urgency of the situation. He explained that the matter had to be resolved quickly if Draxon succeeded in opening the black box first. The entire situation would turn against him. In that case, Deus himself would be the one to suffer the consequences. Gordon admitted that he understood the reasoning, but understanding the logic did not make the plan any less dangerous. He emphasized the risks involved. The Demon King had not yet obtained Orion dimensional energy, and Deus still lacked the ability to fully control such power. Dimensional energy was a fundamental force that existed between worlds. Without mastering it, the margin for error remained extremely small. Every realm naturally resisted intruders from another dimension. When a being crossed into a foreign world, that world reacted defensively. It pushed back with overwhelming pressure, using dimensional energy as a barrier. The force alone was enough to suppress the abilities of the invader. Because of this natural rule, demons who entered the devil experienced extreme weakening. Their original strength was heavily restricted. A demon whose power ranked at the terrifying level of 666 in their own realm would be reduced to something closer to level 1 after arriving in another world compared to their original power. They became almost insignificant. In that weakened state, they would have to face warriors chosen by the dimension itself, guardians who existed to preserve the balance of that world to overcome this natural suppression. The demon race had created a specialized invasion system. That system was known as the Demon King's Tower, sometimes called the Devil's Tower. The tower functioned as a magical conduit that linked the demon world, the Demon King, and the flow of magical energy. By investing accumulated magic points into the structure, the Demon King could gradually draw stronger power from their home realm. As the tower expanded upward, the connection became stronger, slowly restoring their original strength. In many ways, the tower's growth directly reflected the ruler's true power. However, the system came with an important limitation. The farther the Demon King traveled away from the tower, the weaker the magical connection became. With distance, the energy supply thinned and their strength declined accordingly. Gordon reminded Deus of another crucial detail. The Beast King's tower had already reached 13 levels. In comparison, their own tower had only grown to the 5th floor. Reluctantly, Gordon admitted something uncomfortable. Even if Deus truly held the title of Demon King, victory inside the Beast King's territory could not be guaranteed. Deus acknowledged the situation calmly. Although he had absorbed the Phoenix Heart, he had not yet fully integrated its power. The energy inside him remained unstable, which meant he could not completely dominate the other demon lords in his current state. But that limitation existed only if he fought alone. Slowly, a confident expression appeared on his face. The moment Gordon saw that look, he immediately understood what Deus was planning next. Panic returned to him. He tried to object before anything irreversible happened. Yet Deus had already decided once again. He altered his appearance through magic. His body shifted, reshaping into an entirely different persona. With a playful smile, he introduced himself under a new identity. From that moment on, he would go by the name Pale in disguise. He declared that he would personally join the upcoming Brave expedition. Gordon froze in disbelief. The scene transitioned. In the distant region of Ormus, intense combat raged across the land. The Knights of Hillen were engaged in a fierce confrontation with invading demons. Though the knights managed to eliminate several enemies, they were not unscathed. Many bore injuries. The battlefield was chaotic, filled with exhaustion and destruction. Both sides had sustained losses. Hillen surveyed the situation with concern. The enemy had pursued them to this location, yet now the remaining demons appeared noticeably weakened. Recognizing the shift in momentum, Hillen moved quickly between fallen comrade, kneeling beside injured knights to assess their conditions. He provided healing potion, urging them to drink and regain strength. One soldier groaned in pain, struggling even to sit upright. Amid this aftermath, Views arrived, now appearing as Pale. His presence was composed and unfamiliar, his demeanor calm yet commanding. After observing the wounded and the disorder around him, he asked Hillen how the situation had escalated to this point. Hillen instinctively began to address him formally, but Deus interrupted gently, instructing him to use the name Pale instead. Hillen nodded and complied. He then began explaining the events. Once the expedition force had gathered, they initiated their assault on the Beast King's tower as planned. Their strategy relied on exploiting the Beast King's vulnerability, specifically targeting the tails by concentrating their attacks on that weakness. They succeeded in inflicting meaningful damage during the confrontation. However, the battle had not unfolded as smoothly as expected. The memory of the encounter resurfaced. Draxon had unleashed overwhelming force, turning the battlefield into turmoil. Hillen had retreated under pressure, urgently calling for Rosal to execute their plan. But when he looked back, his expression shifted to horror. Rosal had collapsed. She lay severely wounded, blood visible across her face as she struggled to remain conscious. Hillen was shaken. Then he noticed something far worse. Draxen stood directly behind Rosal. Realizing the immediate danger, Hillen reacted without hesitation. Rushing forward to protect her, he supported Rosal firmly, helping her back onto her feet, keeping one arm around her for stability. He turned and fled the battlefield, shielding her from any further attack as they withdrew from the Beast King. The recollection dissolved. Back in the present, Hillen completed his account. His tone carried both frustration and regret as he described how the mission had ended. Because Rosal had sustained serious injuries, continuing the assault was impossible. The retreat had been the only option. The brave expedition had ultimately failed. Deus remained quiet after hearing everything. A subtle smile briefly touched his lips as he processed the details. Then suddenly his expression stiffened. Something clicked in his mind. The pieces aligned with unsettling clarity. In short, everything had fallen apart. Hillen continued, explaining that despite their withdrawal, they had successfully dealt a heavy blow to the Beast King. Still, many knights were severely wounded and required urgent treatment. Their forces were exhausted. On top of that, they had eliminated a significant number of demons during the clash. As Deus listened, calculations formed rapidly in his thoughts. Rosal observed him closely. The more she looked, the more curious she became. She asked who he truly was and why he was assisting them. There was also something else she couldn't ignore, a faint warmth radiating from him. The energy felt unusually pure, unlike anything she had sensed before. Before responding fully, Deus glanced at the injured knights scattered across the field. Their bodies had healed, but their spirits remained broken. Simply fixing physical wounds would not be enough. Without restored morale, they would not fight effectively, and he needed them to defeat Draxen. Unity and resolve were essential. After a brief pause, he decided it was time to reveal part of his strength. A small fiery presence hidden within him stirred. He instructed everyone to follow him quietly. Then he began, rising into the air. The knights stared in shock. Rosal immediately recognized the energy forming around him. A golden flammable-like aura expanded outward. Behind him, a massive silhouette resembling a phoenix unfolded its blazing wings, dominating the sky with radiant power. The atmosphere transformed completely. Deora spoke clearly. He revealed that he was the wielder of the phoenix. His name was Pale and his objective was simple: to defeat the Beast King. Rosal's eyes widened. The phoenix was a legendary existence. The overwhelming surge of energy she had sensed earlier now made sense. That immense presence had likely been his. Judging purely by mono output, his strength was comparable to that of elite 10-star warriors. She felt a surge of hope. If she fought alongside him, victory against the Beast King might truly be achievable. The display quickly revitalized the battlefield. Knights who had been emotionally drained began regaining confidence. One by one they straightened their posture and rose to their feet. Hillen felt his determination returning as well. Though Diaz was operating under a new identity, his leadership and strategy naturally guided the group forward. None of them realized that the mysterious warrior known as Pale was in truth the very Demon King himself. Draxen stands before his companions declaring his intent to reclaim the tower. He reveals that he used far more demonic energy than expected. Because of this, he was only able to obtain a single black box key. Deciding to leave the other for later, he grips the black key tightly, preparing to open the box. His focus sharp and unwavering. He calls out toward his unseen opponent as he begins opening the black box of a consenting Demon King. A dark and powerful aura erupts outward, filling the space with an ominous presence. Draxen demands to witness everything, seeking to uncover all hidden truths, but as the process continues, something feels wrong. He realizes the black box is not being manipulated. Instead, he himself is being affected. Shock overtakes him as he struggles to accept it. The truth becomes undeniable. The black box cannot be controlled at all. The cryptic indicator confirms it with 96% certainty. Frustration surges as he recalls past actions. Finally understanding the reason behind them, urgency fills his mind as he decides to inform the other Demon Kings. At that moment, his servant rushes in, bringing alarming news. Draxen demands an explanation immediately. The servant reveals that the heroes have launched an invasion. The situation escalates even further. He adds that a newly risen 10-star hero is leading the charge. Ralph Schmidt's at the front of the vanguard. Draxen's expression darkens as the reality sets in. Meanwhile, Ralph makes his entrance into Draxen territory. His presence alone shocks the surrounding wolves. His posture steady and filled with determination, signaling the start of a decisive battle. The scene shifts 1 hour earlier, back to Ormuth, where tension fills the battlefield. Deus hovers before the advancing soldiers, confronting them directly as they prepare to push forward. The soldiers rally themselves, declaring they will try again. Their confidence rises to 93%. They remind each other they have the Phoenix on their side. With renewed courage, they dismiss the Demon King as nothing, calling him the King of Beasts. They draw their swords and charge forward. A loud battle cry erupts across the field. They vow to slaughter the demons, believing the Phoenix power guarantees victory, declaring the Demon King treasure will soon be theirs. Observing this, Daze notes their morale has recovered, yet he remains uncertain about one thing, whether they can fully control the Phoenix mana. As events continue, the scene shifts again. Daze speaks calmly with Helene and Roselle. He acknowledges that 10-star heroes alone are not enough. expressing the need for reinforcements. Roselle smirks confidently at this, revealing that luck is on their side. A powerful hero has just requested to join. At that moment, a new presence arrives. Days immediately recognizes him. It is Ralph, a 10-star hero, known as the strongest among shield masters, serving as the vanguard of this mission. His arrival shifts the balance instantly, adding weight to the conflict ahead. The scene returns to the present, inside Draxen Kingdom where Ralph is already fighting. He moves effortlessly through the battlefield, slaughtering wolves while blocking attacks with ease. His shield radiates overwhelming spiritual power. Each roar from it spreads fear among enemies, driving them into panic and destruction. Watching this, Deus reflects deeply, recognizing Ralph as the second strongest tank. He understands the nature of his shield, a weapon capable of reflecting any impact. Deus knows how dangerous he truly is because in a past life Ralph helped defeat him, and even mocked him afterward. Anger rises within Deus at the memory. He wants to tear Ralph apart immediately, but he restrains himself, knowing Draxen is the true priority. Rosal then informs him of something. Ralph only arrived after the expedition ended. Frustration fills her voice. She clenches her teeth in anger. If he had come earlier, things would be different. Together they could have won without losses. Meanwhile, the troops continue advancing. They announce the first floor has been cleared. Confidence continues to rise among them. They push forward, eager to face the Demon King, determined to end everything. But Deus warns Rosal seriously. Confidence is fine, but underestimating a Demon King is fatal. Rosal questions his warning. Deus explains that every Demon King holds a trump card, something revealed only at the brink of death, a final instinctive move capable of changing everything. As he thinks further, he considers a possibility. If Draxen reclaimed the tower and used his energy, then he would not have enough left to stop them. In that case, a rare opportunity appears. For the first time, Deus might witness the hidden trump card. The scene shifts to the Beast Tower. Reaching the 13th floor, the Demon King chamber, an eerie silence fills the space. Draxen sits alone upon his throne, his presence dominating the entire room, his eyes glowing deep blood red. At that moment, Ralph and his knights arrive. They step inside cautiously, sensing that Draxen has been waiting. They scan the area in confusion. No demons are present at all. Even though this is the final floor, they question why only the Demon King remains, recalling how it was once filled with enemies. Without warning, Draxen raises his hand. A sphere of demonic energy forms instantly. He speaks with contempt, calling them insects. He shows no surprise at their return, though he did not expect them so soon. He reveals he has been preparing for this moment. Rosal is shocked by the dense energy, realizing all demons are gone for a reason. Draxen opens his mouth, releasing a beam of aura. He confirms he gathered all his vassals into himself, planning to eliminate them in a single strike. Deus analyzes the situation carefully. This breaks standard dungeon strategy. Instead of placing strong enemies on upper floors, Draxen absorbed everything into himself. His red eyes glow even brighter. He declares he will erase them completely, ensuring they never return again. Helen, Rosal, and Deus are visibly shaken, while Ralph remains calm and focused. Deus senses something critical approaching. The moment is coming. Suddenly, Draxen unleashes a deafening roar. Dark red energy explodes from his body. Two knights rush forward to attack. Another knight shouts a warning from behind, telling them to stop immediately, but they ignore it, believing this is the perfect moment to strike. Their confidence shatters instantly. Draxen power erupts violently. A massive shockwave blasts through the room, sending everyone flying backward. Even Ralph is shaken by the force. Helen realizes the terrifying truth. Draxen magic has reached another level. Rosal cannot believe their attacks failed so easily. She recognizes this as the true power of the Beast Demon King, now far stronger than before. Draxen stands surrounded by overwhelming aura. The entire chamber is filled with dark red energy. His glare alone instills fear. Knights begin trembling uncontrollably. Some struggle even to breathe. At that critical moment, Deus takes action. He activates a high-ranked defensive spell, Protect Phoenix from his back. Two radiant wings emerge behind him. The atmosphere shifts instantly. The others feel relief and gratitude, recognizing it as a legendary ability. They vow never to forget this moment, but Deus remains focused. He cannot allow Draxen to grow stronger. Creating a barrier, he protects everyone inside. He orders them not to step out, saying they will only become a burden. Grateful, they thank him sincerely. Deus steps forward without hesitation. Helen, Rosal, and Ralph follow beside him. Together they prepare to confront Draxen. Observing them, Draxen notes only four can still move. His attention locks onto one figure. The red-haired individual irritates him greatly. It becomes clear he does not recognize Deus. Under his new identity, Deus smirks quietly at this advantage, knowing this ignorance gives him an edge. As the battle reaches its decisive moment, the final clash is about to begin. The battle reached a boiling point as Draxen finally recognized Deus. Rage exploded within him as he roared about the theft of the Phoenix. Enraged that Deus dared to step foot inside his tower, his fury shook the surroundings, but Deus remained completely unfazed. With calm authority, Deus silenced him, creating a domain and activating sound removal magic. A faint smirk appeared as he declared control over every sound. The battlefield shifted instantly. Roselle immediately understood the brilliance of the move. Draxen's roar was completely nullified. At the same time, enemies could not hear spell chants. the advantage had subtly shifted in their favor. Without hesitation, Deus unleashed high-rank binding magic. Sage's chains shot forward to restrain Draxon, but Draxon responded with overwhelming force, roaring in fury as he shattered the chains effortlessly. The gap in power became clear. Draxon declared it was not a fight but a hunt, promising to tear them apart piece by piece. Even then, Deus remained calm, mocking him by saying he could not hear the barking. The silence remained focused solely on Draxon. Rosal urged the others to focus on Pale. At that moment, Deus launched a direct assault. A massive explosion erupted on impact. The battlefield descended into chaos. Both sides exchanged relentless blows. Their movements became faster and unpredictable. Deus moved so fast Rosal could no longer track him. Hillen dismissed the concern, saying following orders was enough. Draxon continued roaring in disdain, calling their actions madness, yet he acknowledged they dared challenge him. The tension continued to rise. Deus suddenly shifted direction at incredible speed, attempting to reposition himself. Draxon reacted instantly, warning him he would not leave alive, calling his name with burning rage. At that moment, Deus locked eyes with him. A memory surfaced from before the battle. He had explained the strategy to his team. Speed was the key to defeating Draxon. Draxon's massive body was matched with terrifying reflexes. They needed to bind his feet and exploit his weakness. Hillen doubted himself, questioning if he could keep up. Deus reassured him confidently, promising to give a signal. Hillen was confused about what that signal meant. The memory faded. The present battle resumed instantly. Draxon lunged forward to crush Deus, believing he had finally caught him, but Deus dodged effortlessly. Then suddenly he stopped moving, revealing Armani's orb with a smirk. Draxon mocked the attempt, calling the orb useless. Deus calmly clarified its purpose. It was meant to reveal a master's location to a vassal. Draxon scoffed, believing no vassals were present. At that exact moment, the signal was given. Hillen appeared instantly, leaping into the battlefield, activating Armani's orb. As he struck Draxon, immense pressure hit him. His head felt like it would explode, but he continued the attack regardless. Draxon erupted in anger. He was shocked that a hero had become a vassal. Deus responded with a calm smirk, saying the method was useful if one survived. His eyes remained sharp and calculating. Hillen delivered a full-force strike. The impact sent shockwaves across the battlefield. The ground cracked beneath them. Debris scattered everywhere. Yet Draxon barely staggered, mocking them once again. He called the attack pathetic. His durability made it seem insignificant. Then suddenly flames struck him, catching him off guard. For the first time he recoiled. The timing was too perfect. The plan from earlier came into play. Deus had instructed Rosal carefully. She would act once an opening appeared. He told her to pour everything into the attack to turn her pain into power. Rosal had listened in silence. Her resolve hardened completely. Back in the present, she unleashed her full power. Mana surged violently around her. The air distorted under the pressure. She targeted Draxon directly, preparing a top-tier spell. Satellite cannon gathered immense energy. The ground cracked beneath her feet. Heat became unbearable even from afar. Then the attack was released. A massive beam tore through the battlefield, blazing with blinding intensity. It struck Draxon with devastating force. The explosion swallowed everything. Fire and destruction filled the area. Then silence followed briefly. Even the wind seemed to stop as the smoke cleared slowly. Hillen, Ralph, and Rosal watched closely, their bodies tense with anticipation. But Draxon stood once again. Rage consumed him as he mocked them. His laughter echoed with madness, sending chills through them. Deus remained calm, acknowledging such an enemy would not fall easily. There was no panic in his expression, only calculation, as if everything was expected. Draxon's fury surged to new heights. His mana exploded uncontrollably. A terrifying red aura erupted, engulfing the battlefield. The pressure forced the heroes back. Draxon declared his identity proudly, the Demon King of Beasts. He swore none of them would leave alive, charging toward Deus once more, faster and more erratic than before. But Deus stepped back effortlessly, a faint grin appearing. Seeing Draxon had become a mad beast, consumed by rage, Draxon screamed he would silence Deus, revealing the power of the Phoenix. A massive aura gathered in his hand. Heat distorted the surrounding space. He spoke with hatred and desperation. But before he could act, Deus struck with a precise attack, interrupting the build-up instantly. Draxon screamed in pain, yet refused to fall, declaring he would not die easily. Rosal identified his weakness immediately, his tails. Without hesitation, she aimed carefully. Gathering just enough mana, she released a precise strike, cutting through one of his tails cleanly. Draxon screamed in agony, his weakness exposed. The opportunity appeared. Deus activated Sage's chains once more, this time instantly binding Draxon. Draxon realized the danger. If struck now, it would be over. He struggled violently, but the chains held firm. At that moment, Ralph stepped forward, activating his healing power. A blue aura spread outward, restoring his allies, strength returning instantly. Then he reinforced himself, preparing to strike. Draxon continued cursing in rage as defeat drew closer. Everything aligned in that moment. Draxon restrained and weakened. Unable to defend himself, the final blow was delivered. In one clean motion, his head was cut down. The battlefield fell silent. Only the aftermath remained, a battle that pushed them to their limits. Deus stood over the fallen king, a faint smirk on his face, confirming the end. He declared he would use the Phoenix, and bid farewell to Draxon, his blade slicing cleanly through the air and through Draxon's neck as the Demon King's head separates from his body, spinning away before crashing heavily onto the ground. For a brief moment, everything falls silent. Then the remaining heroes erupt into cheers as relief and triumph flood the battlefield. Voices rise in unison, declaring that they have finally won. Yet beneath that proud expression, his thoughts twist with ambition. The cheers are not enough. He craves more recognition, more admiration, more worship. He imagines a future where those voices never fall silent. The ground trembles violently. Cracks spread beneath their feet as the tower begins to collapse. Celebration shatters into chaos in an instant. As panic surges through the crowd, voices shout in every direction, while orders are barked rapidly to grab whatever treasures they can, prioritizing recovery potions for the 10-star heroes before escaping immediately. Amid the confusion, Deus stands still for a brief moment, his gaze fixed silently on Draxon's lifeless body. His thoughts linger as he reflects on the path the Demon King chose, wondering if someone like Draxon had been given another chance, whether anything would have changed. The answer comes quickly: no. Draxon had clung to his identity as a Demon King until the very end, leaving no room for anything else. Urgency finally overtakes hesitation as everyone flees the collapsing structure, carrying whatever treasures they can. Outside, Rosal approaches Hillen, her gaze sharp and observant as she calmly states that it seemed he had planned everything from the beginning, intending to be the one to take the Demon King's head. Hillen dismisses her claim, effortlessly brushing it off as a misunderstanding born from the chaos of battle. Rosal does not argue yet. Her expression reveals she does not fully believe him, recalling the moment he chose to join the fight and how suspicious it had felt. Though the Demon King had not been as overwhelming as expected, the battle still pushed them to their limits, and she cannot deny Hillen's contribution. Changing the subject, she informs him that she has taken possession of the Demon King's corpse. Asking if he objects, Hillen replies that he does not. At that moment, urgent voices call out to Rosal, urging her to come quickly, as something unexpected has been discovered among the ruins. She rushes over, only to freeze at the sight before her. The kidnapped prince, and beside him the Akan Kingdom's third princess, Lavinia Akan. Lavinia lies unconscious at first, but slowly begins to stir. Shocked, Rosal demands to know why she is there. Lavinia responds in her usual fragmented manner, mentioning materials. Rosal quickly pieces it together, realizing the truth. Lavinia had entered the tower alone to gather materials for creating a chimera. The realization leaves her stunned as the recklessness of such an act defies belief. Lavinia adds scattered words about monsters, deepening Rosal's concern as she grasps the full situation. Others watch in confusion, unable to understand how Rosal can interpret her speech. Staying focused, Rosal asks if the Demon King harmed her. Lavinia replies with disjointed words about money and monsters. Rosal interprets it quickly, realizing she had been trading monsters for money. Lavinia confirms it without hesitation. Watching them leave, Deus reflects on her actions. Entering such a deadly place alone and negotiating with a Demon King for research is not just reckless, but dangerously unpredictable. The scene shifts to the Hero Guild, where elder heroes gather to discuss the aftermath. They note the loss of the Beast Tower, once a valuable hunting ground. Frustration evident as they speak of the effort invested coordinating sponsors and managing the 10-star heroes, only for an unknown figure to claim victory. This individual, known as the owner of the Phoenix, holds no affiliation with the guild. The elders question his identity, recognizing the importance of uncovering who he is. For the first time since a Demon King descended upon Urgist, the threat has been ended so decisively. Realizing the shift in power, they decide it is time to tighten their control over the heroes once more. The scene transitions to the Ormus Royal Banquet Hall, where the atmosphere is filled with conversation yet weighed down by exhaustion and grief. The king, overwhelmed with emotion, repeatedly expresses his gratitude, thanking the heroes for defeating the Demon King and rescuing the prince. Despite the lack of preparation, he urges everyone to enjoy the banquet while knights gently try to persuade him to rest. Among the guests, Rosal stands out, dressed elegantly as she sips a cocktail, observing the room quietly, noting that despite the somber mood, the drink is surprisingly good. Hillen approaches, offering a compliment on her appearance, remarking that the dress suits her well. While mentioning the princess has safely returned to the Akan Kingdom, Rosal responds with suspicion, questioning if he is trying to leave a good impression. Hillen laughs it off, claiming such efforts are meaningless before her. Shifting the topic, Rosal asks about Pale, expressing her desire to meet him, especially regarding the Phoenix. Others echo her curiosity, wanting to thank him. Then unexpectedly, Ralph speaks his voice alone, shocking everyone as he praises the Phoenix's owner. Hillen reveals that Pale has already left, deepening the surprise among the guests. The narrative shifts to the Urgus mountain range at Burgess Tower, where Gordon stares in disbelief, thanking Deus, asking if he truly killed the Demon King Draxon and returned. Deus confirms it calmly, leaving Gordon stunned. Struggling to process the reality, concern creeps into his thoughts as he wonders about the consequences and what comes next. Dismissing him, Demon Kings tells him to stop staring before taking his seat on the throne. He explains that with Draxon gone, the other Demon Kings will inevitably make contact and his absence would immediately raise suspicion. Gordon understands and accepts the reasoning. Reflecting on the battle, Demon Kings admits to himself that he is still not strong enough. Even Draxon's final attack had not been as devastating as expected, partly due to his weakened state. Relying solely on his current strength will not suffice. he needs to grow stronger and so must the power of the phoenix. At that moment, a message arrives from Jason requesting a meeting of the Demon Kings. The timing feels immediate, as if Jason already knows of Draxon's death. Internally, Demon King smirks knowing the truth, while outwardly feigning shock. Then another revelation comes. A new Demon King has already descended. This genuinely surprises him, as the speed of replacement suggests preparation or foresight from higher powers, still with no evidence linking him to Draxon's death, and the tower now gone. He feels confident enough to attend. The scene shifts to the Tower of Lies on the 13th floor, where several Demon Kings gather, including the Demon Queen of Bitter Cold, Jason the Demon King of Lies, and Big Rock Belvec. Draxon's absence is noticeable. Among them stands a new figure introducing herself as Vivian Blunt, Queen of the Blood Moon Clan. Demon King shows little interest, correcting her on his name before taking his seat. Vivian is caught off guard by his indifference, having expected acknowledgement yet receiving none. Recalling her orders, she reminds herself that Draxon's fall is suspicious and that Demon Kings is the likely suspect. Instructed to observe him, she instead finds his sharp, dismissive nature intriguing, perhaps even easier to manipulate. Deciding to test him, she rises, approaching him as the meeting begins, speaking casually about the strange cooperation among Demon Kings, before shifting focus entirely onto him. Admitting her interest, moving closer, she boldly sits before him. Demon Kings immediately questions her behavior, irritation clear. Vivian brushes it off, claiming curiosity about the kind of demon capable of disrupting the entire realm. With a confident smile, she compliments his appearance and makes a suggestive advance. Without hesitation, Demon Kings rejects her, pushing her hand away with a blunt insult. The reaction leaves her stunned, unable to process what just occurred. As a succubus queen, she is not someone easily dismissed. Yet here she stands facing a man who rejected her without a second thought. Reina, slightly irritated, told Vivian bluntly to return to her seat. Vivian stood there stunned by the sharp tone. Reina continued, firmly explaining that the gathering was meant to welcome Vivian, but it also served a more serious purpose. It was a place to uncover the cause behind Draxon's senseless defeat. She emphasized that everyone present should maintain their dignity. Jason, observing the situation, found himself shocked that Lady Reina herself was presiding over the meeting. Meanwhile, Vivian responded with a grin, teasing Reina by implying that she too desired the same man. Reina, growing frustrated, dismissed Vivian, thinking as shallow and lame. Vivian brushed it off casually, saying that was enough for the day before taking her seat. Jason stepped in to restore order, calling for the meeting to resume. The discussion shifted to the 10-star heroes described as the main force behind the current hero expedition. From there, the meeting continued in a monotonous manner, as the Demon Kings began sharing the information each of them had gathered individually. As the exchange progressed, one topic rose above the rest as the most significant point of discussion. That topic was the emergence of a new powerhouse known as the Owner of the Phoenix. Despite the disagreements, the meeting concluded with a unified decision to investigate the Owner of the Phoenix more thoroughly while remaining cautious. Moving forward, Daeorys reflected internally, noting that since he had been in the middle of the hero expedition disguised as Pale, the demons could not have been spying on him. His thoughts shifted to Vivian, the Inquisitor sent by Archduke Arcane. At that moment, Vivian playfully blew him a flying kiss. Daeorys turned his face away, dismissing her presence and thinking goals over girls. The scene transitioned smoothly to the first floor of Burge Tower, where Kaida observed that the surveillance around her had become lax and cautiously noted that there did not seem to be any demons nearby, while Princess Ernan was nowhere in sight. Seeing this as her opportunity, Kaide resolved to escape, focusing on the exit door. Believing that once she crossed it, she would be free. With determination, she began running toward it. However, just as she moved closer, Ernan suddenly appeared alongside her spirits. Ernan confronted Kaide, declaring that for the peace of the tower and Kaide's own safety, she would stop her escape. Kaide, realizing the danger of Irgis, drew her sword and warned that staying any longer could lead to unpredictable consequences. She admitted she had not wanted to fight, but now she had no choice. The two locked eyes as tension rose between them. Before the conflict could escalate, Gordon arrived, telling Kaide to leave if she wished, claiming he did not care what happened to her. He added a dismissive remark about humans, leaving Kaide shocked and confused, unable to understand how they could kidnap her, and then suddenly act indifferent. Despite her confusion, she suspected a hidden scheme at play, yet decided to take advantage of the distraction. She planned to escape the tower, survive in the Irgis mountain range somehow, and then head straight to Holton Walk to request reinforcements. Acting quickly, Katie dashed toward the door at full speed, but the moment she touched it, an overwhelming aura burst forth from the door itself. The force hurled her back violently, sending her crashing to the ground. Everyone present was shocked by what had just happened. Gordon calmly explained that such a reaction was normal, meaning anyone not permitted by the Demon King could not leave the tower. Despite the warning, Ernan approached the door as Gordon cautioned her not to touch it carelessly or she might face consequences. However, to everyone's surprise, Ernan opened the door with ease, leaving Gordon stunned. Ernan herself seemed confused, awkwardly admitting that she simply felt like she could open it. Unsure of what to do, she attempted to close it again, but at that moment, Deus appeared from outside, pushing the door open with a smirk. He questioned whether Ernan was finally attempting an escape. Ernan was visibly shocked while Gordon acknowledged Deus' arrival, addressing him as the Demon King. Observing the scene, Deus asked what everyone had been doing before the setting shifted to the Demon King room within Burge Tower. Deus ordered Gordon to lock Princess Katie in the underground dungeon for attempting to escape, and Gordon accepted the command without hesitation. However, he raised a concern regarding Princess Ernan, asking what had happened with her, since only those recognized by the Demon King could leave the tower. Yet Ernan had opened the main gate. Deus explained that the tower had already recognized Ernan as one of its members. Shocking Gordon, Deus then observed her through a system window, reflecting that now that she had formed a contract with a high-ranking spirit, escaping the tower and crossing mountains alone would not be difficult for her. He wondered why she had not attempted to escape yet, and questioned her true intentions. The scene shifted to the underground dungeon of Burge Tower, where Kaede was imprisoned and Ernan came to visit her, reminding her that she had warned her not to attempt escape. Kaede responded with suspicion, stating that there was no kindness without motive, believing the Demon King had a hidden scheme and attempting to warn Ernan. At that moment, Ernan looked upward as if aware that Deus was watching through the system window and calmly stated that she had come to the tower of her own will. Kaede was shocked by this revelation, while Deus, watching, was equally surprised, realizing she had looked directly toward him as if she sensed his presence. Ernan then revealed her truth, explaining that she had run away because she hated the royal palace, the royal family, and even her own father. To be precise, she admitted she had been kidnapped at first, but afterward chose not to return. Kaede was left stunned by this confession, as Deus wondered if those words were directed at him. Kaede then recalled that among the many princes and princesses of Hilderin, Ernan alone possessed overwhelming talent, questioning why someone destined to become the future queen would abandon such a brilliant future to become a subordinate of the Demon King. Ernan responded by pointing out a strange truth, revealing that there were 62 princes and princesses in the Hilderin royal family, the largest number on the continent. Yet aside from her, not a single one of them was known by name, leaving Kaede confused, as she insisted that the official number was 28. Ernan clarified that while the official count was 28, the full truth was different, and suggested that Kaede ask the emperor upon returning to the empire to learn the real answer. Kaede worried that if such a secret became public, it would damage the honor of the kingdom and the royal family. Ernan giggled, teasing Kaede by pointing out that a princess who ran away to avoid marriage should not be making such statements, causing Kaede to blush in embarrassment. As Ernan left, she casually said she was joking, and that they would meet again tomorrow. Deus, reflecting on everything, realized this was a secret known only to high-ranking royals, the hidden truth of the Hilderin royal family. He then ordered Gordon to prepare Ernan, stating that he would be going out to find spirit herbs, and Gordon acknowledged the command. The scene shifted to the Irgus mountain range, where a water spirit along with other spirits began searching for herbs enthusiastically. Ernan tried to restrain it from acting recklessly, noting that it seemed excited after being outside for so long, while also mentioning that Deus himself had been away from the tower frequently. At that moment, Deus called Ernan by her name, startling her instantly. With a dark expression, Deus formed an aura flame in his hand, demanding that she reveal what she had been hiding from him. Ernan stood frozen, shocked by the intensity of his presence, while from a distance someone observed Deus through a telescope. The observer finally recognized him as the Demon King of the Irgips. Deus' question immediately unsettled Ernan, causing her to grow anxious and hesitant. Her reaction was obvious, but Deus showed no patience. He made it clear that there was no other option, leaving no room for avoidance or delay. Without waiting, Deus moved Ernan aside and stepped forward. He extended his hand and unleashed a powerful attack. A surge of energetic purple flames erupted from his palm and shot forward with precision. The strike traveled a great distance and hit a man who had been secretly observing Deus through a telescope. The man was caught completely off guard. Shock and terror overtook him as the realization set in that his stealth had been detected from such an extreme range. It became even more alarming when it was revealed that the one struck was merely a clone. Deus regarded the situation with indifference, recognizing the enemy's reliance on cheap tricks. Ernan tried to make sense of what had just happened and questioned whether that individual had been a hero. Deus confirmed that it was indeed the case, and admitted that the presence of this figure had been bothering him for some time. Ernan continued analyzing the situation. She reflected on the unusual circumstances of a hero traveling all the way to Urgest under the guise of exploration. A hero who relied on stealth techniques could only be one person. She identified the individual as the 10-star hero, Daphne Filion, a mercenary known for expertise in information gathering and espionage. His abilities were widely recognized, particularly his mastery of invisibility and cloning techniques. Hearing the name triggered Deus's thoughts. He recalled Daphne Filion from his previous life, realizing that much of his own information had supposedly been exposed because of that individual. Despite knowing of him, this was the first time Deus had encountered him at such close proximity. Ernan then shifted her concern toward the tower, wondering whether it would remain safe. Deus reassured her that there was no problem. The scene then transitioned to the Burge Tower in the Irgus Mountains. Inside the tower, the same hero was analyzing the situation and confirming the existence of multiple clones. He speculated that if a Demon King existed, there had to be a tower nearby. Despite his efforts, he was unable to detect anything around him. At that moment, Deus received a notification through his system window. The ability known as Mana Ghost Remote Control had been activated, rendering the tower invisible. However, this ability came at a cost, consuming 10 demon power points every second. Deus acknowledged the activation of the invisibility function. From the moment he detected the threat, he had already taken action. He recognized the usefulness of this ability, especially for avoiding encounters with heroes. As he monitored the system, he noticed his points steadily decreasing. The cost of maintaining invisibility was significant. With the immediate danger under control, Deus turned his attention back to Ernan. He instructed her to continue their conversation and demanded that she reveal everything she had been hiding. He made it clear that refusal would result in her never being allowed to enter the tower again. Ernan lowered her head and remained silent for a moment. After gathering her thoughts, she decided to reveal the truth about herself. She brought up the concept of the Child of the World tree, questioning whether Deus was familiar with that magic. Meanwhile, inside the tower, Deus's guards maintained surveillance on the spy attempting to infiltrate. They reported back that the hero had emerged from the Urgus Mountains without using any stealth techniques. As expected, it appeared to be another clone. Deus acknowledged their efficiency and ordered them to locate all remaining clones and track their movements. The guards accepted the command without hesitation. At the same time, the system window continued updating. The Mana Ghost ability remained active, and the demon power points kept decreasing. Deus reflected on how close the situation had come to exposing the tower's location. Although the tower was now more reinforced than before, it was still not ready to withstand a full-scale expedition of heroes. Eliminating Daphne fully had become a necessity. Ernan then revealed that Daphne had likely come in search of her, sent by her father, the king. Deus interpreted this as the royal family's unwillingness to give up on the first princess. He connected this to her earlier mention of the Children of the World tree, suspecting a deeper link. Ernan admitted that the story was long and complex, and Deus assured her that there was time to listen. She began recounting the past. The kingdom of Hilderan had once been a powerful empire. However, after enduring several wars, its national strength declined significantly, reducing it to a mere kingdom. Her father, the king, desired to restore it to its former imperial glory. To achieve that goal, he believed that instead of relying on tens of thousands of soldiers, what was truly needed was a single genius mage capable of dominating the battlefield. However, geniuses could not simply be created through education, nor were they easy to find naturally. Deus began to suspect the truth behind her words, and Ernan confirmed it. The Child of the World tree was the answer, a form of magic capable of creating humans. The revelation stunned Deus, his eyes widening as the implications sank in. Ernan continued explaining that from the fetal stage, an immense amount of mana was forcibly injected into developing bodies. The success rate was extremely low, with only a small fraction true prodigies emerging from the process. The goal was to create magical geniuses with exceptional sensitivity to mana. She added that humans were capable of acts strikingly similar to those of demons. Deus questioned how such a process could even be endured. It seemed impossible for either the fetus or the mother to survive such strain. Ernan confirmed the fear. Many had died during the process, and even those who survived were often left deformed and perished shortly afterward. Only the successful cases were ever presented to the public. As this heavy truth settled in, Deus noticed something unusual behind Ernan. A creature resembling a one-eyed octopus-like demon had appeared. He quickly assessed the situation. The creature had likely been drawn by the demonic power he had unleashed earlier. Judging by its presence and aura, it was a monster of superior rank. Deus once again extended his hand, gathering mana within his palm as its energy condensed into a destructive force, and ordered Ernan to step aside, addressing her firmly as the princess. However, Ernan did not retreat. Instead, she raised her hand alongside her water spirit, preparing her own attack. As she stood her ground, she revealed that she was among the successful outcomes of that forbidden magic, a being created as an overwhelming genius. At the same moment, the demon formed a powerful red mana circle, its energy swirling violently before being hurled toward them. The air trembled under the pressure of the attack, yet Ernan reacted instantly. Through her water spirit, she manipulated the surrounding water, compressing it into a sharp, ice-like spear. With precision and speed, the attack was launched forward, piercing straight through the demon's body and ending its existence in a single decisive strike. As the demon fell, Deus observed the outcome in silence before acknowledging the feat. The fact that a human had eliminated a higher-ranking monster in an instant made it clear why the king refused to abandon his ambitions. Ernan, however, did not take pride in her strength. A sense of guilt weighed heavily on her as she described her power as something stained with blood. Deus responded by pointing out the contradiction. With such immense power and a position so close to the throne's succession, her claim of not wanting to return to the kingdom sounded unbelievable. He questioned whether she truly expected that explanation to be accepted. Ernan, now visibly irritated, insisted that she was telling the truth. She demanded that she be taken along, just as a magical artifact had been used on Hillen. Her tone carried urgency, emphasizing her sincerity. Deus dismissed the request, explaining that the Armani orb could not withstand the mana of spirits. Raising his hand once more, he gathered mana again. He demanded that she reveal her true intentions. Frustration overtook Ernan. With a sudden movement, she grabbed Deus's hand and pressed it against her chest. Her voice rose as she insisted that the truth had been told all along. Caught off guard, Deus reacted with shock, questioning her actions and demanding that she release his hand. Ernan insisted that the heartbeat could be heard, using it as proof that nothing but the truth had been spoken. Her words left Deus momentarily confused, but then something unusual occurred. Through her, he began to sense something deeper. It was as if a phoenix existed within her, allowing him to perceive her internal state. The rhythm of her heart became clear, conveying emotions directly: shame, anger, and disappointment, all blending together within her. Ernan, slightly embarrassed yet still holding on to her anger, explained that this was a method of communication used by spirits. When mana was pure, it allowed one to perceive subtle waves that revealed the feelings of others. She reaffirmed that everything she had said was the truth. Deus, reflecting on what had been sensed, acknowledged internally that her words aligned with those emotions. Ernan then revealed something more personal. From the very first moment she saw the Demon King, she had sensed something different about him compared to the others, and that difference had given her hope. Deus reacted with confusion and disbelief when she spoke of needing help, struggling to understand what was being implied. With urgency and desperation, Ernan pleaded for assistance. Her intention was declared clearly: she wanted to bring down Hilderan itself. The statement left Deus stunned. Even as the words were processed, disbelief lingered, and the question remained whether such a claim could truly be taken as the truth.